The story begins with the main character being bestowed with a skill named Gacha. After that, in Resifel, the royal capital of Rockhind, his father expressed how amazing the skills granted to him were. Crest Banished was the Duke's fifth son. When you reach the age of 15 in this country, an appraisal ritual ceremony is held in which God bestows upon an individual a skill, looking into the future, God's dream. His family's jaw dropped when he told them about it. This was Crest's first time seeing his father this happy. After giving birth to him, his mother passed out. He was given life at the cost of his mother's life, and his family hated him as a symbol of evil for this reason. He was a natural sinner who could be isolated at any time, but even so, he was able to live comfortably. It was all thanks to the girl who just called Crest. Ellis, Duke Ryfeld's daughter, was the only reason why he was barely alive. They were engaged for political reasons. Ellis was a beautiful girl who looked good at first glance, but her true identity was that of a bully. Crest had been terribly bullied ever since he was a child. He was sure the bullying might escalate if he started using the skill, but he knew he couldn't be scared forever. When Ellis laughed and stated how useful it is to have such a convenient skill as his, he put on a fake smile just like hers and thanked her, hoping it was a shill that could be used by her. Ellis didn't expect him to react like that, so she ran away to hide her surprise. That was unusual for Crest. His father called him, and he didn't worry about Ellis. Crest decided that those oppressive days that he had to endure ended here today. With his new skill Gacha, his new life was going to begin here. Bahurst's appraisal ceremony started. Crest placed his hand on the stone as he was instructed to. When it was confirmed that his skill was Gacha, people were pretty surprised. His father told him to show him his Gacha right away, and he listened to him. He used his skill for the first time, but a flashy screen that only he could see appeared. People started chattering, so he announced to everyone that in front of him, there was a Gacha screen for him to roll the Gacha. Nervously, he rolled the Gacha and was sure something would happen, but it didn't. The Gacha wasn't rolling. When he looked at the screen, it informed him that he didn't have enough points to roll it. He currently had 0 points, and he needed a total of 500 points to do that. Seeking this opportunity to make fun of Crest, his brothers came and asked him if he was scamming them. He tried to prove that he did see it in God's dream, but they wanted him to roll. He responded that he didn't have enough points to roll the Gacha. They told him to go gather it now if that was the case. He started scrolling the screen to find out how to collect the points because he wasn't told this in the dream and had no idea how to do that. When he heard his father's firm voice, saying that he had caused them shame, he knew he was done for. His father thought that Crest was not satisfied with just killing his mother, and now he was spreading mud in the name of Bahurst. While crying and trembling, he attempted to explain himself, but his father was in no condition to even listen to him. This time he didn't forgive him, and Crest faced his bitter fate. He was exiled. In the next scene, they were on their way to exile Crest. The Guardians called him stupid because they thought he tried to outsmart his brothers to the point of making such a big lie. If he had listened to them, he could still be able to live in a noble house somewhere at least. When they arrived, Crest wanted a sword because if he went unarmed, he would be killed by a monster immediately, but they were told to treat him like the sinner he was. Crest responded that the original reason for sinners to be sent to the lower world was to subdue demons. He promised to defeat as many monsters as possible in order to redeem himself. He added that he wanted to make the upper world a place where people could live safely for a long time. After this speech, one of them gave his sword to him and immediately sent him to the lower world. In a second, Crest found himself in the middle of a forest. This was the lower world where monsters resided. The upper world was where humans lived, connected only by one magic circle through an indestructible gate, and its existence was one of a kind in the world. Transport magic circles were used to send criminals who had committed felonies to the lower world. The locations to which they were sent were completely random, making it impossible to return. He flexed his arms and tried to decide what he should do now. Suddenly, he felt something coming at him. It was a wolf. Wolves were larger and more ferocious than normal wolves. They don't hesitate to attack even armed humans. But Crest wasn't afraid of them at all because he was at the top of his class in this knighthood academy, and he had fought a monster once. But the monsters of the upper world were weaker than those there, so he wondered if his swordsmanship would hold up there. The wolf started coming at him again, and he bravely counterattacked, but even though he slashed him in the face, he was still in good condition. While being shocked that fighting in the lower world was an instinct, he passed his sword through Wolf's throat and managed to defeat him. He had to move his body a lot more than he thought he would, and the sword he got was worth making that awkward speech. He decided to drain the blood for now because he heard that monster meat was delicious. As he gazed at the wolf, something appeared in front of him that said 100p. He wondered what this could mean because when you kill a monster in the upper world, this didn't happen. Then it hit him. This was a 100-point kill. He checked his current points, and it was true. This meant that his failed skill was only useless in the upper world, where there were no monsters. He first had a mental breakdown and started screaming around, But when he got tired and lay down on the ground, he thought maybe this was for the best. He didn't want to take any charity from his evil fiancée, his brothers, or his father. He had been through so much misery and humiliation to get what he had. He would have been pissed if he hadn't gotten any good skills. He decided to get the gacha to work, so he just had to find another monster. The thought of finally having some hope made him happy because he had been trying to learn how to survive for the past 15 years. He was dedicated to surviving in the lower world. Meanwhile, in the upper world, Ellis was surprisingly missing Crest. In the next scene, we see a flashback scene when Ellis is bullying Crest again after the appraisal scandal. When he was unresponsive, she told him to say something. Crest asked her if it wasn't great for her because she ended up having to break up the engagement with an idiot. She responded that she didn't like that attitude of his because she was the one who was putting in all the effort to save him from there. Crest was confused and asked what she meant by that. She stated that he was her dog, her toy, and her slave, so she can't just let him leave without her permission. Crest could care less about her but still asked how she was going to help him. Before that, she took out her boat and told him to lick her foot and swear his eternal loyalty to her. Then she promised to take back their engagement cancellation, and they would get married as soon as they got out of there. She was planning to hold a ceremony to witness them, and no matter what, she would destroy the Reifeld family for him. But the only thing he needed to do was prove his absolute obedience by licking her feet. At first, Crest looked like he was about to do it, but then he threw her feet away and started yelling at her that he wasn't her slave. She was shocked and told him that if he was sent to the lower world as he was now, he may die. But he didn't care about what she said and told her to leave if she was done talking. After saying that he would regret this, she stormed out and left him alone. After that incident, Ellis fell ill and had to head back home to rest. When her maid was preparing for her, Ellis told her to prepare her things because she was going to see Crest again. But the maid informed her that Crest had been banished to the lower world before dawn. Meanwhile, in the lower world, Crest was a slashing monster. This one was the second kill. The area had a dense population of wolves. His skill, Gacha, was a super rare skill that allowed him to obtain an infinite number of skills instead of one skill. But to spin the Gacha, he had to defeat monsters and collect points. One wolf had 100 points. He needed 500 points for each Gacha, so he would need to defeat at least 5. At first, he was thinking of rolling the Gacha as soon as he accumulated one. Even if wolves could be hunted without any problems if dealt with calmly, it didn't mean that he could continue to collect points smoothly. That's why he decided to aim for 5,000 points so that he could roll this advantageous one-time Gacha. He also had a lighter body, which made him pretty easy to move around. It seemed that the mental leeway of having hopes and goals was greater than that. After 37 kills, subjugation was completed. At this rate, it seemed that 5,000 points would be accumulated while the sun was still bright. He decided to check the number of points just in case and saw something unexpected. The points weren't increasing. He was so confused and mad, but he tried to calm down because he was sure there was a reason for that. He wondered if his hunting method was wrong or if there were different points for each individual creature. He glanced at the dead wolf and realized that the interface stopped displaying after slaying. He figured that he hunted too much and regretted not checking the points more diligently. At sunset, Crest somehow managed to accumulate 5,000 points. After that incident, he changed his hunting grounds. He hunted goblins and some fang rabbits. Goblins were easy to defeat as they were simple-minded creatures. On the other hand, the Aang rabbit had lower attack power than a small wolf, but it was extremely agile, so he had a hard time hitting it with his sword. When he came to the lower world and fought a monster, he realized that if he had only a single skill, he would have been dead a long time ago. He was so happy and excited to finally reach 5,000 points, but impatience was no good, so he decided to observe Gacha again. The 3 points were probably healer, appraisal, and cultivation skills. There was no doubt all of them were super rare skills that led to high-level jobs. Normally, only one skill is given in the appraisal ceremony. However, he had the chance to learn all 3. He didn't know what he should do. He was indecisive about whether he should roll it here or if he should hide himself in a safe place first. But seeing he had 11 times Gacha, he didn't want to wait anymore. The moment he rolled the Gacha, a treasure chest dropped right in front of him. He pressed the screen that said, "Touch," and the chest opened. 11 balls came out of the chest. He wondered if they were all skills. It seemed like there were various types of balls. What's more, one of them even had a copper tone to it. Each of the copper balls all at once started shining, and he saw many level 1 skills in them, such as strength, agility enhancement, power enhancement, and strengthening magic. He wouldn't be able to comprehend just this, so he decided to keep going. Next were the silver balls. There were more skills in the silver ones, such as dagger skills, swordsmanship skills, and mining. But it was better to check out the swordsmanship skills, as he only had a sword on hand. Next up were the golden ones, and they were magic skills like fire and earth. He was sure that survival would be much easier if he could use magic. Last but not least, he had one rainbow-colored ball. So far, there were still no 3-point Pew-like skills. He approached the ball nervously because he wished to have at least one of the Pew skills. Luckily, the rainbow ball was an appraisal skill. He immediately wanted to try it out. Certainly, if he thinks about the skill name in his head, it would work. He closed his eyes and thought about appraisal. When he opened his eyes, he saw a notification that said data was being updated. Tons of marks show him the things that he could appraise. He touched one of them and it was a peach fruit. He realized that as his level increased, the number of items he could appraise increased. Thankfully, he could see what was toxic or not, even with level 1. He also had a mark on his hand, which meant he could see his status too. When he checked, he noticed that he had 9 skills possessed. His eyes started tearing up, but before getting too emotional, he had to eat something. He made a fire and cooked some wolf meat. Even though it was the best he could do in this situation, the meat was delicious. He also made a bed and a blanket using the furs of the wolves. It was still enough to keep the cold out. He had a lot of work to do tomorrow and looked like he would have to hunt for different kinds of monsters for the gacha points. He wanted to make a base more comfortable to live in, and if possible, he wanted to have the healing skill. While thinking about that, he fell asleep and started dreaming about Ellis and her bullying. He woke up sweating and panicking. After all this time of isolation, he didn't want to see her in his dreams. He lay down after calming down and tried to sleep again, but he started thinking about the time when Ellis's true nature was exposed. When Ellis first met Crest, he told her not to get involved with him because he was a child of the devil. Ellis, who had understood and exploited her own value since she could remember, Crest was the first gentleman who was not interested in her. That day, Ellis decided to make him interested in her. The next day, she often went to see Crest, and that's when the bullying started. Crest was very kind to her and accepted her for who she was, which she had never shown to anyone before. Before she knew it, she became attracted to it herself. But on the other hand, she saw his brother making fun of him. Not aware of Crest's charm, foolish brothers gathered together just to make fun of him. Those people were the very definition of incompetence. But it was frustrating. She wondered if there was a better way to triumph over those incompetents. She then had an idea and whispered to her father. Her father told everyone to gather in the ballroom because his daughter Ellis had something to say. Ellis announced to everyone that she was going to be engaged to Crest Beggarts. A short time later, they were about to attend the Royal Academy of Nobility. They didn't see each other often because of different departments. Crest's skill with a sword even reached her ears in the Department of Nobles. She was very proud of that. The girls at the academy knew that he had a lover but didn't know who it was until one day Crest waved at Ellis and Ellis waved him back. She told the girls that she and Crest were engaged. After that, Ellis regretted saying that because Crest's popularity exploded among the first daughters. The love story between beautiful men and women was the best entertainment for the girls, who lead a boring dormitory life. It seemed that Crest's manner, unbefitting of Duke, was also unusual. One day, she told him about the attention he was getting from the ladies. She reminded him that she was his fiancée. This all started with a little jealousy, but from this time on, little by little, her thoughts were broken. She started ordering him not to talk to the opposite gender other than her, and kept reminding him that he was nothing without her. The flames of her jealousy burned fiercely as she cornered him. In addition, his bad reputation spread within the school and made him stand out. He lost confidence and became depressed. Her goal was to keep him away from the opposite gender. She became obsessed with diminishing his value and seeing his frustrated face. However, one day she was informed that Crest had a divine dream and got a rare skill called Gacha. After hearing that, Ellis panicked because she was afraid that Crest would move away from her. She was very upset, and on the day of the appraisal ceremony, she was the happiest person alive when she saw him banished. There was no doubt that her engagement to him would be broken off after this blunder. If she could offer a word of salvation to Crest, who had completely lost his bearings and was in despair, she was sure he would be hers forever. But she was wrong. She wished to be more honest at that time and wondered if she could ever see him again. While she was crying in her room about losing Crest, her door was knocked on by one of her maids, and she informed her that they had received a message from the head of the family. Her father told her to prepare for an audience with King Rakind as soon as possible. Meanwhile, in the lower world, Crest was the happiest man alive because of how delicious the fruits he found were. He found a peach tree that was about 2 times larger than usual, and it became a young tree in 5 days and bore fruit. 5 days ago, he finished 25 fish arrows and got his second round in Gacha. This time he got 2 rainbow skills, and there were quite a few other new skills. Appraisal was an overlap, but it wasn't a bad thing because it would raise his skill level. He was sure the seeds from the peach fruit he ate the other day would be useful. He used his cultivation ability and noticed that the fruit was harvested after 5 days. He thought about the possibility that the rainbow skill was a more overwhelming cheat than he thought. Back to the present, he opened the rainbow skills and he finally acquired the healer skill, which he always wanted. With this skill, he could make a recovery potion, but of course he needed materials for the potions. Although he had done a lot of exploring around here in the past 5 days, he didn't see many medicinal herbs. Nevertheless, his anxiety about injury and illness had cleared up. Now it was time to start looking for a base with lots of medicinal herbs at noon. In the next scene, he was fighting with a fang cow, but his sword broke. He was so close to defeating the cow, but he already knew it was dangerous to attack a monster that had tough skin with a bronze sword. He started thinking about a way to defeat this monster, and after considering all the skills he had, he decided to go hand-to-hand fighting. Surprisingly, a hand-to-hand fight worked, and he defeated the monster. He had never thought he would see such a powerful enemy. He was also shocked that the monster gave him 200 points when he thought it was fixed at 100 points. He wondered if it was because the stronger the monster, the more points they would be worth. Also, the hand-to-hand fighting technique was incredibly powerful at level 1. He couldn't feel his hands, and they were still numb from earlier. When he looked at his hand, he couldn't even see it because of the blood. He started panicking because the numbness was disappearing. The situation was bad because it didn't look like simple broken bones either. He had to use his healing magic with choo-choo grass that he found during his search for herbs, and he placed the magic water purified by water magic. He applied it to the affected area, and it was done. It hurt a lot, but his hand healed in seconds. However, it seemed that both hand-to-hand fighting and durability were lacking, so he still had to take care of the sword. He used his smithing ability, and with the hilt of the broken sword on the board and the fangs of the fang cow, he created a cow fang sword. The sword was done in no time at all, and its durability was also max. It was a very good skill to have, despite being silver. But the previous fight reminded him that weapons alone were not enough. There was one thing that wasn't enough, and it was friends. He had to keep on defeating new monsters to spin Gacha. If such strong enemies continue to appear in the future, being alone is a risky choice. If he had a friend, they could take turns to watch and sleep. Strategies are also born in battle. Even though he originally lived in the upper world, he was driven away by ruthless humans, so it was possible that innocent subhumans still survived. It was hard to make friends with human sinners and wild sub-races like goblins. So he wondered if a higher sub-race with longevity or well-developed generations could give him a hand. From now on, he decided to search carefully for any traces of subhumans, and if he did see them, he would call them out. Suddenly, he felt trapped because he had no idea how to make friends. He had never done anything like that in the upper world. There was only one person he had in mind. He remembers having close fights with her every time in the Department of Knighthood. There were quite a few skills that she taught him. He remembers the two of them training together without telling Ellis. He wondered what his only friend was doing right now. The answer to this question was in Resifel Castle because Ellis was freaking out. Minue Mycelian, Crest's battle friend, was there. Minue was telling Ellis that she was called by the king, and she seemed to know that she was also called for that reason. Minue was the illegitimate daughter of the Mycelian family, one of the 3 great dukes of the kingdom of Rakind. She was a woman who had scarce skills on the day of the appraisal ceremony. She was in the same night department as Crest, which became a common topic with Crest. At the academy, she had been around Crest more than Ellis, and she had bigger melons than her, which was one of the main reasons why she hated her the most. While the two girls were together, foolish brothers of the Banished family arrived. They started to praise Ellis. One of them also told her that she was beautiful today, and the other approved of it. They mentioned the monster that Minue killed the other day and started praising her too. Now that the incompetent Crest was gone, one asked if she would have liked to have him as her fiancé. The other one told Minue that the audience with King was so boring and wanted her to skip it and go out and play. Ellis told him off by saying someone like him couldn't have replaced Crest, and wanted him to never say that he was better than Crest again. She asked him not to be ridiculous. Minue continued to destroy them by saying that her power was to protect all the people. It didn't matter whether he was a commoner or a noble. She told them if the Banished brothers posed any danger to the public, she wouldn't hesitate to dispose of them too. As Minue was called by the king, she left the brothers alone and went to the king. The Lord of Resifel Castle apologized to the lords of the 3 Grand Dukes' houses for calling them out on such short notice. Crest's father said he came there for the sake of the king. He said the Banished house would always prepare to come. The king said it was actually about the monsters that suddenly appeared the other day. Crest's father was sure that their Mycelian family had taken care of it and asked if there was something wrong. The king told him that he had done a great job on that, and the details would be explained in a letter received from the Pope. The letter was read by the captain of the knights. It was written that, regarding the appearance of mysterious monsters that threaten the castle these days, he received a vision from God which he would write down there. According to the word of God, it was said that the day when a great number of monsters would come forth in the future would not be long. It was a serious matter for the country. She continued, and in the letter it was told not to be alarmed as God already had a countermeasure against monsters' attacks. He had granted them special skills. 3 people with those skills were listed below. The first one was the Blessing of the Saint, and the holder was Ellis rifled. Ellis thought that her skill was too powerful in a peaceful upper world, but who knew it was a very rare skill for use against monsters. The second skill was the Strike of the Hero, and the holder was Minue Mycelian. Ellis got so angry that she faced her again. She thought her skill was more of a support type. Being close to commoners and soldiers would surely increase her popularity, and meanwhile, she could just leave all the filthy monsters to that cowgirl as she got a bigger rack than her. She was wishing for her to die miserably on the battlefield. Before the last person was revealed, the brothers of Crest were sure it was one of them. To everyone's surprise, the last skill was Gacha. Literally, everyone in that room froze. They were not expecting the last person to be Crest, who had just been banished to the lower world. The king continued to explain that these 3 skills had been a hot topic for some time. They were the skills that specialized in anti-monster. Moreover, all of them were from Duke's family. Furthermore, the Pope predicted that more people with anti-monster skills would continue to appear in the future. In other words, they didn't have to be afraid of the monster attack. From the looks of it, the kings didn't seem to know about Crest's situation. Ellis realized that only she and Minue had to deal with the monsters now. The kings noticed the absence of Crest and asked what happened to him. His father was about to explain everything, but someone stated that Crest Banished would never set foot in this place. The king asked what he meant, and he stated that it would be wise to hear it directly from the head of the family himself. His father could barely explain that he committed a crime, and he sent him to the lower world. The king was flabbergasted. He started scolding him for sending a person who had God's favor. He asked what kind of sins he committed, and he had to be banished to the lower world as a 15-year-old boy. Minue stepped out and stated that Crest didn't commit any crime. Lord Banished, during Crest's appraisal ceremony, called him a liar because he couldn't use his skills on the spot, so he sent him to the lower world. As Crest's father started screaming at Minue, the king called him a fool for doing that. The other man stated that in the letter just now it proved that what Crest said was true and he did have the Gacha skill. They blamed his father for not trusting his son. Ellis seemed to enjoy this situation. The man then told the king that he would like to consult something with the king. The king permitted him to say what he wanted to say. He asked the king if he could appoint Crest as the head of the Banished family when they brought him back. His father was definitely against this idea because as the 5th son he had no right to the title, but that was the reason he was consulting with the king, and he mentioned that it was going to be difficult to bring him back otherwise. They called him a liar, treated him as a criminal, and sent him to the lower world. He was treated so badly by his family, so if they weren't careful, it was possible that he might hold a vengeance against the country. Therefore, with the succession of the title, Crest's position would be superior, and Crest would be able to punish the Banished family for wrongly punishing him. Even though he knew he was right in every word he had just said, Crest's father still begged the king to not do that and forgive him. However, the king stated that if Crest offered a return condition, he would give the title to him. Ellis's father used the relationship between him and Crest, so he was probably trying to get the power of the 2 dukes. Then he would be powerful enough to surpass even the king. The day may come when the Rifle family will take the throne in the future, but that was only if Crest and Ellis had a good relationship, which seemed pretty unlikely in their current situation. Ellis wasn't interested in her father's plan. Her mind was consumed by a single thought: she might see Crest again. She resolved to apologize to him for everything she had done when they meet. Meanwhile, in the lower world, Crest was exploring his abilities. He discovered that he could imbue weapons and armor with different skills. Curious, he decided to experiment with his sword. The Cowfang's sword offered 2 options: a strength enhancement or a slashing technique. He chose the slashing technique simply because it looked so cool. Suddenly he smelled something salty, and when he followed the smell, he arrived at the sea. The sea in the lower world was the same as in the upper world, so the furthest distance was covered in mist. It was common sense for humans to say that the world was shrouded in mist, and no one knew what lay beyond that mist. Several attempts were made to investigate, but they all failed. Before long, no one even thought about going beyond that mist anymore. He noticed a pier nearby and decided to check it out. When he arrived, there was no boat in sight, leading him to assume that whoever had once lived and fished there had either moved on or encountered some incident that prevented their return. Whatever the case, it was his turn to fish now. He'd been eating only meat and fruit, and he was eager to have some seafood for a change. He ended up catching a big fish quickly, but it was a monster called Sawagan. It started attacking him with his spear, and Crest could barely dodge his attacks. He couldn't get close to it on this narrow bridge, so he decided to try his slashing technique. He started by slashing the body, then stabbed his heart and killed him. He was surprised that this monster was worth 200 points. He wondered if he could finish it off with a single blow if he raised the level. He wanted to catch something a little more decent, but the sea was full of Sahagan. All he wanted was to find some seafood, but this seemed impossible. Even if his appraisal skills told him that they were edible, he didn't think he could eat those things. He continued fishing for a while after that but couldn't catch any fish. Only points were accumulated. Meanwhile, in the upper world, they put a teddy bear as the representative of the Banished family. The king trusted Duke Ryfeld to take care of finding Crest. The head of the Mycelian family came and wanted to assist them in their search for Crest. He wanted his daughter to search for Crest. The people didn't seem to like this idea because she was supposed to be protecting the country. The king stated that the strike of the hero skill was truly a powerful weapon. If a large number of monsters attacked while they were away, it would be bad for them. Minue's father stated that the fact that Crest was in the lower world was a much more dangerous situation than they were. This was a race against time situation, and it was obvious which one they should prioritize. The king realized that he had a point and asked if Minue was okay with it. Minue used all her cuteness and stated that she was okay with everything. King was thrilled by her cuteness and dismissed everyone. But Ellis interrupted and asked if he could leave the search to her as well. Since she had also been given the skill, she became very powerful. She also pointed out that she was Crest's fiancée, so she was a better choice. The king was indecisive about this, and Minue said that this wasn't a good idea. She informed him that Crest always talked to her in the past, and told her that he was mentally cornered by Ellis's violent behavior. Ellis was shocked that she was brave enough to say this in front of everyone, while Minue continued to explain that Crest would run away in fear if he encountered her, and that it would be very difficult to bring him back. Ellis was trying to stop her, but it was useless. Whatever she said didn't stop her from saying that he might even take his own life if he saw her, so she ended up covering her mouth. The king asked if what she said was true. She had to admit that she was harsh with Crest, but she defended herself by saying that even though he was the fiancé, Minue was giving a lustful look at Crest. She was playing the victim. Minue didn't let her do that and stated that she was only treating him as a friend, and if that was what it looked like, all she had to do was to tell her directly. What she did was called taking it out on Crest. Ellis reminded her that she warned her too, but she didn't listen to her until she talked to Crest. Minue denied that because she had never been told that before. While they were fighting about who said what, the king had enough and yelled at them to bring Crest immediately, and he didn't care which one of them would do that. When they left there, Minue asked what she was planning to bring Crest back. Ellis responded that she would try to convince him, and her father also prepared the best souvenir for him. Minue asked if she was talking about giving Crest a title when he came back, and she confirmed it. She said that Crest would be given the position of head of the family. This didn't surprise Minue. She told Ellis that she didn't know anything about Crest, and she knew that the only thing Crest cared about was his freedom. Ellis was sure about herself because if he became a duke, he could have all the money and houses he wanted. But Minue knew that it wouldn't make him happy, and she laughed at her because it seemed useless to say anything more to her. After that, she started walking away. Ellis was confused because she had no idea what true freedom would be like. Back in the lower world, Crest was having his last day of April limited gacha. After all, every time he spins 11 times gacha, at least one rainbow skill is confirmed. His rainbow skill level was maxed out at 3. To do that, he needed to pull 4 of the same skills. He was nervous to open the skills. He prayed for them to come out of cultivation skills. Luckily, what he wanted happened, and he got a level 1 cultivation skill. He was so happy to have all the rainbow skills at the max level. After that, he returned to the cave where he had been staying since he got into the lower world. But it was time to say goodbye because he finally got construction technique skills in yesterday's gacha. With this, he was going to build the home that he had been waiting for. He also decided where he was going to build his house. The area had a slightly higher and better view, a creek nearby so he could catch fish, and it was easy to access areas that had not been explored by him. Without waiting any longer, he started building. Since it was only level 1, the type and size of the house would be limited, but he lived alone, so it didn't really matter to him. He already had the construction materials, so all he had to do was choose. He was having fun just looking at those floor plans on the screen. After deciding which house he would take, he clicked on it, and it appeared right in front of him. He was shocked because he thought there would at least be a process or something like that. He checked the walls, and they were sturdy enough to protect him from most monster attacks. He opened the door and went inside. The inside of the house was also pretty solid. The curtain was monster fur, the window panes were made of beach sand, and most importantly, he had a kitchen that he always wanted. He could use his cooking technique skill and complete his foods in an instant. But that was what made them taste so much worse than homemade. There was also nothing to do but explore and collect points, so he became addicted to cooking. When he lay down on his bed, he was shocked because it was so much fluffier than the one at his parents' house. While enjoying his bed, he noticed the calendar on the wall and decided to check the status again before the month changed. The points collected so far were 50,000. Using 40,000 of it several times he had tried gacha was 88 times, and he was banished for having 4 missed skills, and the number of skills he currently had was 30. He started to feel unrealistic. Looking at the life he was living right now, he couldn't imagine living without skills anymore. He thought he needed to be able to relate to someone to really feel it. He then remembered that in the same class as appraisal and doctor, there was a skill that let you befriend and raise monsters. And tomorrow was May, so he thought he might get a new selection in Gacha. But then he tried not to raise his expectations. He didn't even know if he would get another limited edition Gacha in the first place, and the worst that could happen was that his unused points would disappear. He didn't know if he should turn in all his points. He tried to focus on his fluffy bed and not worry about his Gacha for a while. In the Duke of Bayhurst's house, Crest's brothers were talking about how Crest humiliated them twice. One of them teased him for talking boldly to the next head of the family. His brother said he wasn't worried about that at all because he didn't bully him, so there was no way he would punish him. Rather, the one who bullied him the most should be scared. Their father was sick of their fights and told them to shut up. He was extremely dense because they needed to decide who was going to search for Crest. They started passing the buck to each other until one of them was willing to go. It was Albert, and he was only doing that because he had a secret plan that would bring Crest back. In the next scene, Albert is buying a slave collar. It was a tool that made the person strapped to their neck follow orders. But the man who was selling it to him reminded him that it was a tool used for criminals, and if it became known that he had used it on Master Crest, it would be bad. But Albert was someone to whom you could not explain something like that. After that, he went to the gate that connected the upper world to the lower world, but they could only enter through that side tunnel. They warned Albert to be careful because the lower world was dense with demonic elements that not only inhibited the movement of the body but also monsters. It was a way to strengthen their bodies. However, as always, Albert told them to shut up. He had brought 20 knights from the Bayhurst house. He didn't care if the monsters were goblins or wolves because, after all, they were just small fry. He believed that 20 people would make it easy to find Crest. The eldest son and the younger brothers were all incompetent. There was a big chance lying right in front of them, but no one wanted to take it. He planned to use Crest as a puppet with a slave collar and take control of everything in Bayhurst. In the lower world, Crest excitedly opened his eyes to the first day of May. He immediately checked his Gacha and fortunately, it was there. Now that he had 11 rounds, he knew a rainbow was confirmed, so he gave it a try first. He had 10,000 points, so he could do it twice. When he opened the chest in front of him once again, lots of new skills appeared. He even had a monster evolution technique, and there was also one rainbow skill called Summoner. Monster evolution technique allows you to evolve monsters, and the Summoner skill was to summon the monsters that you made friends with to any location. He realized that both of those skills were useless without the skill to make a monster friend. He tried not to panic about that because he just needed to get the skill to make friends in the next 11 rounds. When he rolled the Gacha one more time, he got all the rainbow skills from the selection. It seemed that he could make monster friends with this monster taming. Speaking of which, he learned a few things at the Noble Academy. There was certainly a way to make monster friends, and that way was to attack the monster repeatedly with affection without killing it. He had no option but to express his desire to become friends. However, he ended up punching the goblin too hard and made it pass out. But when a bunch of hearts appeared on top of its head, he realized that he had to hurry and tame it. Goblin sat there puzzled while he was happy that he had done it. He thought she was dead and asked if she was a female. But she could only say the word Gobu, so it was a bit hard to communicate with her. Crest was so tired, so he just wanted to shake hands for now. But when he reached for her hand, she slapped his hand. He tried to teach her to shake hands, but even after many tries, the goblin kept slapping him. Crest decided to check her intelligence, and it was confirmed that she was an idiot. He had a hard time making friends, and he didn't expect it to be like that. While he was thinking about how stupid she was, he realized that he was acting like the ones who called him incompetent. This goblin in front of him was also incompetent, so he decided not to act like that and patted her head. She seemed to react to this move positively. He decided to raise her to be a full-fledged warrior. He also tried out the summoner skill, and it worked flawlessly. Her reaction to being summoned was pretty funny. This kind of summoning speed might be useful for a surprise attack, so Crest was satisfied. Suddenly, she started jumping and tried to tell him something. He didn't understand her, so he was confused. But then he heard something. He decided to not think about it because he might just hear things. Meanwhile, Albert was furious that they couldn't even fight the goblins. The whole team was about to be annihilated. He told the detection team to always use the skill of detection. They said that because of this dense magical element, it was difficult to detect not only Crest, but also monsters. And even just standing there like that made their magic power diminish rapidly. Albert got angrier and started smashing his head. He could only think they were just incompetent. But even he didn't expect the demonic element to be this troublesome. The knights didn't seem to be able to do half of what they normally do. He asked how many people were seriously injured, and he responded that there were 5 people. But everyone was wounded in some way from the current battle, so they had to pull back here and prepare again. But Albert did the opposite and told them to leave the one that couldn't move and continue their way. The knights were shocked. He even dared to say that they would collect them if they were still alive when they got back. There was no way he could go back like that because his position would be in jeopardy if he can't bring Crest back with him now. Knights started to rebel against him and decided not to follow him anymore. But one of them ended up being slashed by Albert. He told the others that if they didn't obey him, they would end up like him. Finally, something that would make him satisfied happened, and they found something that looked like a human trace. The trace was pretty new. They wondered if it was from Crest, but Albert didn't know what the shape of his soles looked like. They started following the footprints. Back at Crest's place, he befriended a female wolf. Her intelligence was 20, unlike the goblin. Suddenly, the goblin tried to say something to him. He thought she wanted him to look at hers. When he looked, he realized that he needed to name her. Now that they had become his companions, it would be weird to call them Goblin and Wolf. He named the goblin Goblia. The moment he named her, she suddenly turned into a little girl. He wondered if that was the influence of the monster evolution technique that he had earlier. Even her status had jumped up a lot. Now it was time to name the wolf. He named her Rufna, and she grew into a beautiful wolf. He looked at Rufna and Goblia and told them that from today forward, the three of them would live together in this lower world. They all hugged each other in cheer. The sun was going down, so he decided to go home. However, something snapped and they started growling at someone. Crest was puzzled as to what happened to them, but he also noticed that something was coming from the bushes. He heard a faint voice and a scream right after the voice, and he was facing his brother Albert. Back when they were still children, Albert always beat him up and called him a parent killer. It was still clear in Crest's head when he told him that he would never forgive him, and that he would beat him for the rest of his life. Crest was confused and nervous while Albert was smirking. He said that he was looking for him and he thought he was dead. Crest asked why he was here in a firm voice. Albert responded by saying that he should be happier to have this reunion, and he had come all this way to get him. He said that they sent him to the lower world as a joke. Crest got mad and told him that they almost got him killed because of that. Albert grinned shamelessly and had the audacity to tell him not to be angry, but he could feel that what he was holding right now was not anger, it was fear. From the time he was born, they had been instilling fear and despair in him so that he would never be able to go against them. He didn't care if he had a super rare skill. If he just kept going at his pace, everything would be fine. Before doing anything, Albert warned his knights that if they showed any sign of fearing Crest, he would kill them all later. Then, Albert continued teasing his brother, asking if he was keeping a pet again. He told him to stop it because he would let it die again soon. Crest tried to explain that he didn't kill the pet he got when they were children, but Albert constantly told him that he was the one who killed it. He said that the dog died because he was weak and incompetent. Crest was reaching his limits. Albert continues to underestimate him by saying that he cannot handle a monster if he is incompetent and tells him that they are going back to the upper world. That was where Crest could refuse immediately. He told him to go home because he had decided to live there. Albert listened to him in silence and then used his bully brother's face, yelling at him to use honorifics. Something cracked in Crest's brain and he started shaking and sweating in fear. He continued screaming at him to shut the monster down or he would cut its throat and shut it just like that time again. Crest found himself in the position to apologize to his brother, just like he always did. That was Albert's real secret plan, using his trauma. His brain was under so much stress that it could no longer make rational decisions. Rufna started barfing at them loudly to protect her owner. The knights were scared by her, but they knew Albert would kill them if they did anything. Crest ordered Rufna and Goblia to stop and not go against their brother because if they did that, his brother would hit him. Albert started bursting into laughter and I told him to shut up and listen to what he said. He continued to yell at his face repeatedly and threaten him until he had no confidence in himself. After yelling and screaming at his face enough to make sure he was completely closed, Albert stopped and decided that he didn't even need to use the slave collar and just handcuff him. Goblia and Rufna were watching him be taken. Goblia couldn't stop herself from calling for her owner, but one of the knights told her not to come closer and punched her. Goblia was about to counterattack, but she saw Crest's regretful face and stopped. Crest was devastated that he couldn't keep the promise he gave them and couldn't make them great warriors. However, Goblia suddenly started to bounce around and tried to say something to him, but he couldn't understand. She then jumped into the bushes and disappeared. Crest thought this was the last meeting with his friends. Even if he came down to the lower world, even if he got a very rare skill, in the end he was destined to lose everything. Rufna came and started pulling his shirt to stop him. He tried to stop her by saying that if she continued doing something like that, she would be beaten too, and she should go somewhere else. Suddenly, Albert interrupted him and told him to kill the dog, and if he kills her, he will admit that he wasn't incompetent. Crest didn't know what to do. He knew he couldn't kill her, but if he was incompetent, he would beat him up again. Then, the word Gobu was heard in every inch of the forest. They were all confused. Albert slapped Crest and thought he sent Goblia to call the others and told him to make her stop right now. Crest knew he would hit him, but he somehow felt refreshed. He could feel Rufna's warmth so close to him, and the only sound he could hear was Goblia's voice. He also remembers hearing that voice from somewhere. Then it hit him. He knew what she had been trying to say to him. He started screaming her name and she answered him. From all the thoughts in his head, Crest was able to use his summoner skill and summon Goblia right in front of Albert's face. She knew he would do that, so Goblia was ready to punch him in the face. Using all her strength and might, Goblia punched him and threw him into a tree. Albert was shocked and in pain. Goblia started celebrating and approached Crest. He patted her head with teared-up eyes. Albert was so angry now that he told him that he was going to kill him. He told Crest that he was nothing, and that he wasn't a part of the family. While making a sword out of the handcuffs he had on his wrists, he told Albert that he had never been his brother from the beginning, and that he was nothing to him. Pointing the sword right in front of his face, Crest, for the first time in his life, scared the hell out of his brother and told him that he was his enemy now. Albert made his decision and grabbed his sword, but then the sword started to melt in his hands. He told Crest that if he defied him, he would carve it into his brain and see what would happen. He ordered the knights to kill Goblia and Rufna, but they just stood there. He reminded them that they were still knights and that they must obey the Lord's command even if they had to stab each other. After that, they had to attack Goblia and Rufna, but it didn't even take them 5 minutes to defeat all the knights. Crest was surprised that Albert thought he would be upset again if he attacked both. He said that his men were rather cautious by Rufna's and Goblia's voices. The cream from earlier would have been from a monster attack. He told him that he could not beat them in strength. This was Albert's fragile side, so he got really mad. He started using his fire magic and was sure he wouldn't lose to them, as he was the strongest fire magic user in the upper world. He sent a fire cannon to Crest, thinking he would be dead by that, but Crest used his earth magic to defend him. He was flabbergasted by how many skills Crest had. He tried to calm down because he relied on his fire magic. This was just a mud wall in front of him, so he decided to crush it with a continuous attack. He sent fire cannons over and over again, but they still did no damage to the wall. He asked if he could use a level 5 or higher earth magic, but Crest responded that his earth magic was level 3. When Albert expressed his surprise at the divine skill Gacha, Crest realized that his skill was the reason why he brought him back. Albert admitted that his skill was one of the abilities given by God to save the upper world. He explained to him that recently, monsters had appeared frequently in the upper world, and it was a sign that many monsters would attack in the future. He kneeled in front of him and begged him to come back with him and save the upper world. Bowing to his incompetent brother was the biggest humiliation of Albert's life, but he was just aiming to find an opening and put the slave collar around his neck. Crest approached him and told him to raise his head. The moment he did that, Crest stabbed him in the shoulder with his sword. He told him that they were the ones who abandoned him in there and he didn't give a damn about what happened to them. The situation was bad for Albert because he was sure Crest was going to kill him. Crest asked why he was looking at him like that and if he thought this would convince him. Albert mentioned that their father had been reflecting on the situation since then, and he decided to give him the Duke's title. The power and wealth of the Banished family was going to be his. But he didn't need such a thing while also stabbing his leg. He then realized that he had made a mistake because if he stabbed his leg, he wouldn't be able to return home, so he just decided to kill him right there. But he realized what he was thinking the moment Goblia grabbed his shirt. He used his water magic and healer to heal him, and told him to return to the upper world and report that he had lost. He warned him not to get involved with him anymore because there wouldn't be a next time. He turned his back to him and started walking. The reason he stopped was because he didn't want to be like him. He wasn't Crest Banished anymore, he was just Crest. He took Rufna and Goblia and they left. But Albert was still planning something, and he took out the slave collar. Right before he was about to capture Crest, a bunch of goblins appeared and started attacking him. They took off his clothes and hit him using big heavy stones. Crest remembered that he learned at the Noble Academy that goblins could also attack the opposite gender of a different race while maturing. He thought he might be in trouble too, but the goblin team turned to Goblia and gave her a thumbs up. After that whole mess, Goblia and Rufna brought fruits for him to eat. While eating, Crest was thinking about his divine skill, Gacha. He knew it was a ridiculous skill, but he didn't think it was one of those levels that could save the upper world. He wondered what would happen to the upper world without him. If the monsters attack, aside from Ellis, this would be a burden to Minue too. He got distracted by Goblia and Rufin because they thought they were going to lose him again. He apologized to them and comforted them that he wouldn't go anywhere. It had been a very long day for them, so Crest decided to go home, but this time an enormous explosion inside the forest stopped them. Crest initially thought he was dealing with a monster. The idea of heading home was appealing, but he was concerned about the possibility of encountering the creature along the way. To avoid any trouble, he decided to assess the situation first by using his perception technique skill. What he discovered left him stunned. There in front of him was a blade cow accompanied by a human. This sight gave him an uneasy feeling as it was highly unusual. The human turned out to be a young girl who was desperately trying to fight off the blade cow. However, the difference in strength between her and the massive creature was painfully obvious. She was clearly struggling, and it was only a matter of time before she would be overpowered. Recognizing the danger she was in, Crest decided to intervene. Without hesitation, he rushed to her aid, managing to fend off the blade cow and ultimately save her from what could have been a deadly encounter. As he grappled with the cow, Crest asked the girl if she could understand him, trying to ensure communication between them. To his relief, she spoke the same language as him, making the situation slightly less complicated. With the help of Goblia and Rufna, who had joined in the fight, they were able to defeat the blade cow together. Despite their victory, Crest noticed that the girl was still visibly shaken. Her face was pale and she was sweating profusely, clearly in distress. Concerned for her well-being, Crest used his appraisal skills to check if she was okay. What he found alarmed him even more. The girl was suffering from a deadly poison and had less than 3 minutes to live. Realizing the urgency, Crest quickly began to prepare medicine that could save her life. He had her drink the potion immediately, and within moments she started to recover. The improvement in her condition was dramatic. She was soon feeling better than ever. As she expressed her surprise at the effectiveness of the medicine, Crest couldn't help but examine her more closely. He was almost certain she was human, yet something about her felt off. His perception technique suggested that she was neither fully human nor a monster, leaving him puzzled. Curious, he asked if she wasn't human after all. In response, she slowly removed her hoodie, revealing her ears, which were unlike those of any human he had seen. She then introduced herself as the Goblin Queen, shedding light on her true identity. This revelation not only added to the mystery surrounding her, but it also explained the unusual feeling Crest had sensed earlier. Crest remembered learning that at Night Academy. Some of the demi-humans had been born with high abilities due to mutation, and sometimes they were called kings or queens and they ruled over tribes. As he was lost in his thoughts, she said that she had a favor to ask him. She wanted him to save her village. Before answering her request, he asked for details. She stated that there was a small village where she lived in the middle of a mountain, and this morning, a poisonous monster suddenly attacked their village. They fought them off, but many of the villagers were poisoned. She started begging him because, at this rate, their tribe would die out. After a second of thinking, Crest stated that it would be too dangerous to move through the woods in this darkness and used his light magic. He asked how many people were poisoned, and she said 10. He immediately came up with a plan and told her that they were going to procure some antidote materials along the way. The queen was still confused and asked if he was going to save them, to which he responded that there was no reason to decline, so he was going to do whatever he could. While he was telling Goblia and Rufna that they were going to be walking a little more, the girl was having a hard time trying not to cry her eyes out. She bowed and thanked him with all her heart. Crest stated that it wasn't a big deal, but then he had an idea and asked her if she could provide land and labor as a substitute. He explained that he wanted to set up a new base in their village, so while he was away, he would like her to do a little cleaning. She accepted his request and mentioned that everyone in the village would welcome him. Before leading him to the town, the queen asked his name. Realizing that he forgot to introduce himself, Crest finally introduced himself and his little friends. The queen's name was Livia. In the next scene, Ellis and Minue are in the bathroom chatting about Crest. Minue asked if she knew Albert was sent down to the lower world the other day, and she didn't even know who that was. Minue kind of condemningly asked if she didn't know his ex-fiancé's brother. Ellis responded that she wasn't interested in anything other than her Crest. Minue informed her that the Mycelian family was also planning to send troops to the lower world. Due to the mass outbreak of monsters, maintaining the security of the upper world had become a priority. She didn't even know why she ended up taking a mixed bath with her at the inn where she was dispatched. Ellis asked if his brother managed to bring him back. Minue responded that after they found traces of Crest, they seemed to have disappeared. That was as far as the Banished family could go. But deep inside, Ellis was so happy that Crest was still alive. Ellis started teasing Minue, asking if she was sure it was okay for her to be so relaxed. She said that if she didn't hurry, their best troops from Reifeld's house might bring him back. Minue stood up and told her that Crest was not coming back no matter who went. Her only concern was that life in the lower world must be inconvenient. Ellis asked if she was planning to give Crest a change of clothes. The lower world was not such a sweet place after all. Minue agreed and mentioned that if she did that, she might not come back either. Back in the lower world, Crest gathered 10 poison bee needles and 5 poison snake fangs. Livia apologized for not being able to help him as much as she wanted. Crest didn't mind that because she was still sick, and Goblia and Rufna were eager to fight too. They continued their way while Crest was telling her about his life in the upper world. She never knew he had such a hard time, but she was glad that the skill Gacha was a wonderful power for him. Crest mentioned that he had to keep defeating monsters, and some skills cannot be used on their own, so it was often a struggle for him. Livia wanted to see him play Gacha one day. When they arrived at the village, the goblins were all looking for Livia. They were so glad to see her okay. Seeing how much they worried about her, she defended herself by saying that she left a note, but that made the situation worse because she literally poisoned herself to find an antidote. Livia said she would take as many complaints as they wanted later and informed them that her poison was cured by Crest. They were so excited to have a savior who could perform such miracles until they realized that he was a human. Livia tried to calm them, but the goblins reminded her that humans were the ones who banished them to the lower world. Livia knew the past could not be changed, but right now, their priority was to save their friends in the village. They seemed to understand her and led Crest to the place where they kept the people who were poisoned. Crest and Livia gave them the medicines, and they healed in a second. The goblins who were judgmental towards Crest apologized to him for their rudeness. Livia reminded them that they hadn't finished treating the other yet and reminded Mr. Gobzo, the goblin they had just treated, to rest a little longer. This made them realize that Livia was the one who should be resting and started scolding her for doing reckless and selfish things. With that, they continued the treatment and Livia brought Crest to her home. She said that she would like to have a welcome banquet for him. But she had been away from the village and she needed to take responsibility for her actions. Crest didn't care about the banquet and stated that he was just grateful that she offered him a place to sleep. Not only the exterior but also the interior was quite impressive, but the bed was made of dried leaves. Goblia and Rufna were already asleep, so Crest decided to rest too. He made himself a glass cup and energy potions to cure the exhaustion. Skills wouldn't be activated without the skill name. Thinking back on it, he was sure he didn't have time to think of a smithing technique when he made a sword out of handcuffs to fight with his brother. He tried to use Extinguish the Fire skill, but it didn't work. He decided to just sleep and think about that later. There were still many things that he was having a hard time understanding. The next day, goblins were shocked that the house was built in an instant, and the building was on the same level as Livia's mansion. Crest mentioned that he was thinking about rebuilding the house that was destroyed. They asked if he was sure, and he said that they didn't know when the monsters would attack again. Livia overheard what he wanted to do and complimented him. He noticed that she was cooking, and she responded that she had been working hard for him. Crest went to the kitchen to help her and saw a scissors crab's baby. He said that this was delicious when served raw as sashimi, and if she took the soup stock, she could make a delicious soup. But Livia had no idea what those were. Crest explained that when she simmers the meat like that, the flavor comes out and you season it with salt or some kind of spices. But she didn't even know what salt was. She tasted it and found it very delicious. She was also shocked that he knew how to use that big piece of iron because no one in the village knew about it. Crest noticed a goblin using water magic to help his friends take a shower. Curious, he asked if others could use magic skills as well. Livia explained that only a few had the ability. Crest then asked if they always had to line up like that, and she explained that it was because the goblin was the only one who could use water skills. Seeing this, Crest suggested using a bucket to lighten the goblin's load. He used his smithing technique to create a bucket and proudly showed it to Livia. She then asked how he intended to use it, which made him realize that the villagers knew nothing about such simple tools. At night, Crest asked Goblia and Rufna if they were okay with sleeping in that tiny cabin. But after all, they were monsters, so they were more than okay, even though this wasn't enough for Crest to not wonder if they were comfortable. He eventually went home and laid down in his bed. It had been a long time since he had a fluffy bed, and he sure missed feeling like he was floating in the air. Suddenly, he remembered the ignorance the goblins had earlier. Knowledge was biased for sure, but it was still strange. Suddenly, his door swung open and someone asked if he was awake. He replied that he was, and wondered if it was Livia. Sure enough, it was Livia, who entered his house wearing a very revealing outfit. Crest, confused, asked what was going on. Without warning, Livia dropped to her knees and thanked him as the head of the village. She explained that thanks to him, the quality of life in the village had dramatically improved. As the village chief, she felt it was her duty to protect everyone, but feared she might end up being the one to destroy it if she didn't take action. Crest tried to comfort her, but she did something he never expected. Leaning in close, she confessed she had a favor to ask and then asked him to marry her. All that was happening confused the hell out of him. But then they realized that they were alone in a man's bedroom at night, and it should happen at least once. This wasn't something even the Noble Academy would teach him, so he was confused. She continued to insist on making love with him, but her voice and body were shaken so much. She ended up fainting on the bed because she pushed herself too hard. Crest let go of his breath and told her that she didn't have to do that. If she needed help, she could just talk to him. She talked about the alliance with the werewolf tribe. She said that the alliance was nothing more than a name, and they just wanted to keep them under their control. They also seemed to be concerned about the recent mass outbreak of monsters. They might think of trying to procreate with the goblin race, who could interbreed with other races. At this rate, they were going to be taken in by the werewolf tribe. Crest now understands why she wanted marriage. Crest stated that he hated things like political marriages the most, so they could not get married. Livia was upset, but then he put his coat on her shoulders and told her that he could not overlook the fact that Livia and the other goblin tribes would be at a disadvantage, so he was willing to help them. Out of happiness, she tried to hug him, but Crest told her to put on some clothes first. She realized that she was almost naked and apologized for dressing like that. She didn't want him to think of her as someone who offers her body to everyone, but he didn't. But that was some extreme clothing, and Crest had an idea. He asked if she had any interest in clothes. She responded that she didn't have a strong interest in it. There used to be craftsmen who made clothes, but now that he was gone, they couldn't make new ones, and then everyone in the village gradually lost interest. While Livia was explaining her clothes, he was thinking about how the weapons and farm equipment were well maintained, even though they didn't know about buckets or soup stock. And only Livia's mansion was built in such a magnificent way, but everything else was simple, because there is no technological transfer in this world. In the upper world, you could learn skills other than the skills you possess. In this place, when the person with the skills died, that was it. He didn't know why they were going against tradition, and at this rate, the village and the tribe would eventually perish. With the tailoring technique, Crest made clothes for her and asked if she wanted to try them. The clothes he made were so pretty and they fit her. She asked if it was okay for her to take that, and he said it was. She thanked him and promised to cherish it for the rest of her life. After that, Crest, Livia, and Rufna went to see the werewolf king Orphe. Orphe glared at Crest but didn't say anything to him. He assumed that the fact that she was there was because she had decided to accept the offer for an alliance. Calmly, Livia stated that she was going to decline that offer. Orphe acted like he didn't hear her, and once again assumed that she had come here to accept the alliance. Once again, Livia stated that she was going to decline the offer. The door slammed and so many werewolves came. Orphe ordered them to get their weapon and raid the goblin village, but Crest yelled at them to wait a minute. Orphe asked who the hell he was, and he introduced himself. He said that he was human, but for certain reasons he was indebted to the goblin tribe village. They started chattering as to why a human was there. Crest stated that they didn't come here to start a war with them, and they only wanted to ally on an equal footing. Orphe didn't take him seriously and told him that there was no way the proud werewolf tribe was equal to the goblin tribe. The others backed him up and wanted to kill them. Suddenly they noticed Goblia and Rufna. Orphe asked who gave mana to the monster. Before Crest answered, Livia proudly stated that it was, of course, Crest. She didn't stop there and started praising his power. The thing was, Crest didn't know about mana, so he asked what it was. Livia was shocked that he gave them mana without even knowing it. She briefly explained that mana was a special name that was given by a specific person under specific circumstances. It was said that those who had been given mana would have their various abilities greatly enhanced. Orphe made his decision and told Crest that he would be named as the representative of the goblin tribe, and then he was going to challenge him to a duel. If he won, the goblin tribe would be under their command and only give the werewolf tribe the magical name. Crest asked what would happen if he won, and he said that he could do whatever he wanted, but that was not going to happen. Now the representative of the werewolf tribe, Orphe, and the representative of the goblin tribe, Crest, are going to hold a duel. Behind him, Livia apologized to Crest. She was feeling guilty for putting the responsibility on him. Crest told him not to worry about it because he would rather use his magical name as a bargaining chip. He was just glad it didn't turn into a full-scale war. He was going to fight against injustice because he couldn't stand the thought of being exploited one way or another. Livia held his hand and wished him good luck before the fight. After that, they started fighting. The first attack was from Orphe, and Crest was the one who was dodging. He repeatedly attacked Crest with his sword, but it was all for nothing because Crest was dodging pretty easily. This made Orphe even more angry, and he told him not to underestimate the strength of a werewolf. It had been a while since Crest had a proper sword-to-sword fight, but his body still remembered what he learned at the Noble Academy. He stayed calm against an opponent who tried to rush him and seized the opportunity to attack. When he catches the opportunity, he uses his hand-to-hand fighting technique and punches his hand, making him weaponless. After that, it was easy. He put his sword to his throat and won the battle. The werewolves were shocked that their king lost against a human. Orphe told him to kill him because he didn't want to live in disgrace, but Crest refused to do that. He reminded him of what he said before the battle. Do what you want to if you win. So he was going to do what he wanted with his life. He ordered him to live and form an alliance with them. And of course, goblins and werewolves were on equal footing. His shame was not in staying alive. To comfort him, he even said that his shame was not in staying alive, it was to die first and abandon the people who adore him. Everyone started sobbing after that and told Orphe that Crest was right. They could not live without their king. Suddenly he kneeled in front of Crest and called him my lord. Crest was puzzled. Orphe stated that if he wanted, he could use him and he would become his sword. More surprisingly, he turned to the others and declared that their new leader was Crest. Crest tried to stop them, but then Livia told him that she was really impressed by what he just said and decided to pledge her alliance to him. As they started calling him their leader, Crest got angry and explained to them that he was not going to be the leader, but if it would help the goblins and werewolves form an alliance and stabilize things, he would be okay with being their leader. They all seemed more than happy to make him their leader. He also mentioned that he cannot get Livia as a wife. Orphe was confused because he wasn't planning on starting a family yet. Livia said he was asking that she give herself to him as a condition of their alliance. He corrected her that it was because he wanted a strong warrior. After all, he heard about the Goblin Queen's fighting prowess before. Livia panicked and felt bad for making herself out to be a tragic heroine. Crest asked if he wanted a strong warrior because of the increasing number of monsters in the lower world. He stated that for a certain purpose, he needed as many warriors as he could get. Crest wondered the reason behind that purpose, and he said that he was about to tell him the gruesome past that happened in their village. The story of one pathetic werewolf who should be punished for his sin. In the next scene, goblins were freaking out because there was a horde of werewolves headed for their village. They thought Crest and Livia were killed and they were under attack. But when the werewolves arrived, they all bowed to the goblins and thanked them for letting them stay there from today. Back where we left, Orphe sat down and started to tell his story. They used to live in a village further north than there. His father was the chief at the time and he was supposed to decide who would succeed him. But their father died actually. He was killed by his brother Veld before he could declare the successor. Their father inscribed his name on the stone tablet that would mark the name of his successor. When his brother found out about it, he went berserk and killed the old man on the spot. On top of that, he framed him, his brother, for the murder of their father and even tried to execute him. His comrades got emotional about the things he had been through because he was a compassionate man who didn't even treat his underlings badly. Orphe continued to explain that he was saved by those guys from his father's faction when he was about to be executed and somehow managed to escape this far. He also mentioned that if he kept him, he and his friends might be in danger. Crest put his hands on Orphe's shoulder and told him that they were allies now, and there was nothing to be worried about. Crest decided to get right to it and figure out the bases for the two races. The first one was the pattern of living separately as before, and the other one was this option. Back to the Goblin village, Crest explained to the goblins that he decided to move the werewolf tribe's base there. Orphe told the goblins that as an apology for the inconvenience caused by the earlier incident, they could use him and his men as they liked. They seemed a bit uneasy about it, but if Crest and Livia were okay with that, they were too. Now that they had settled this, Crest mentioned that he was thinking about developing the western area from now on. They asked if he was going to build the house with his skills, but Crest responded that the werewolves themselves would be cutting the trees and building the houses. There was a werewolf with a construction technique. She was a pretty cute lady and corrected Crest that she could only draw blueprints herself, but it wasn't even compared to Crest's level. Crest wanted her to play a central role in the construction of the village from now on. Also, he wanted them to utilize each other's skills such as cooking, agriculture, and clothing, and develop the village. The goblins had never thought about developing before, so they were pretty excited when Crest said all those things. They started with cutting the trees first and worked all together. When it got dark outside, they celebrated the friendship between goblins and werewolves. While eating, Livia reminded Crest of something, and he wanted everyone's attention for a moment. He said that he was going to bestow on the Goblin Queen and the Werewolf King a demon name. A few hours ago, Livia and Orphe had a favor to ask of him. They wanted him to give them a demon's name. To their surprise, Crest immediately agreed to do that. They were unsure because they heard it was a difficult ritual, but Crest explained that it was just giving a name. He asked if they were okay with the demon name as it was now, and they were. He thought about it for a moment and stated that tonight, in front of everyone, they would perform the ritual of giving both of them their demon names. He started with Orphe and named him. When the naming was done, Orphe could feel the power flowing through his body and was shocked. Then it was Livia's turn. She also felt the power through her body. Earlier, Goblia mentioned that her appearance changed due to her demon name, so she was hoping her breasts would get bigger. But when she checked, they were the same. While she was bummed about that, Crest was checking her stats, which were going up considerably. After the two of them, Crest decided to give everyone their demon names. Now that they were all going to develop this village together, it would be better if all the villagers had high status as well. They got in line and Crest started naming them one by one. Looking back to the upper world, the king called every duke in his presence. He wanted confirmation on each of the current situations. He started with Banished family. The duke stated that Albert, who went to the lower world, was still missing, and he was very concerned about his son's safety. But that wasn't what the king asked. He told him to dispatch a new search party to the lower world immediately. But the number of monsters in the territory had increased so much that they were unable to cope with the situation. Ellis's father joined the conversation, suggesting that if they wanted to ensure Crest was brought back, his daughter Ellis should be sent. Minue's father countered by proposing that Minue should go instead, as she was the most qualified candidate for the search in the lower world, and wouldn't even need an escort. Ellis's father began praising his daughter, mentioning how she was protecting the royal city with her skills from the underground temple. He then posed a question: how could they be sure that even more powerful monsters wouldn't attack in the future? Answering his own question, he asserted that Minwei was sufficient to handle the monsters in the upper world, and for the search, his daughter Ellis would be the best choice. As the two fathers argued over who should stay and who should go, Minwei could only think about whether she would have the chance to see Crest again. Meanwhile, in the lower world, Crest finished naming all the villagers, and also taught them how to hunt and handle their equipment. He didn't expect Livia's swordsmanship to be this good, but Livia was also surprised. The Goblin tribe had been suffering from this mountain Kong for many years in the past, but thanks to the magic name, she easily beat it. One of the goblins came and informed her that they had found one of those seemingly unfamiliar mushrooms. As she went to take care of that, the other goblin stated that old Livia was back again. Since Crest's arrival, Livia has been smiling a lot like a young girl her age. They wanted Crest to continue to support Livia from now on. Crest intended to do that too. Livia came back and thanked him for waiting. She then asked if Crest knew the best way to make delicious food out of Mountain Kong. He responded that he was not good with human-shaped meat, so he didn't know. As he examined the body of the Mountain Kong, a point screen suddenly appeared, showing it was worth 300 points. He was puzzled since Livia, who had defeated the monster, couldn't see the screen. Not wanting to confuse her, he kept silent and suggested they continue the hunt, thinking there might be more monsters around. Later that night, he was astonished by what he saw on the Gacha screen. He had accumulated a total of 15,200 points, which meant he could do 33 rounds of Gacha. Crest couldn't recall earning any points after the 22 rounds on May 1st. Then, it dawned on him that the numbers he saw earlier when Livia defeated the monster were connected to the points he earned for giving everyone a demon name. Initially, he panicked, but he quickly reassured himself that this was likely just a glitch that would be fixed later. In the meantime, he decided there was only one thing to do: act as if he hadn't noticed and quickly turn the gacha. He was startled when Livia suddenly entered his house. She asked if he was busy with something. Crest replied that he was just thinking about spinning the gacha. He pointed at the gacha screen, though he knew Livia wouldn't be able to see it. She asked if she could sit next to him and watch if that was okay. Crest didn't mind, but he warned her that it might be a little confusing to follow what he was about to do. Livia smiled and said that just being by his side made her feel like they were spinning together, so it was fine with her. When Crest turned on the gacha roll screen, surprisingly, Livia could see it. She wondered if it was because she touched him. He didn't know the reason, but now that she could see it, they could do the gacha together. Suddenly, Livia sat on his lap, leaving him in shock. She asked if he could let her see the gacha this way. Even though he was pretty shy to do that, he thought this might be part of her culture, so he didn't say anything. After what happened the other night, he decided not to get too deep into it. He did the first 11 rounds, and she was pretty surprised to see the skill balls. The rainbow-colored balls looked like gemstones. When she touched one of them, she was shocked to see the ball start to glow. Crest explained that the balls that came out of this gacha had 4 rarities: rainbow, gold, silver, and bronze, and the best skills could be obtained from the rainbow-colored balls. She asked about the summoner level, and he explained that it was a skill that instantly summons contracted monsters. And the rainbow ball always gives a month's poo skill, which means pickup skills. In May, they had 3 different kinds of summoner skills. She wondered if it was okay to not pull anymore if he got those 3 types. Crest responded that even if he got the same skills, he could stack them, and they would level up. He would need to give a total of 4 rainbow balls to max it out. She wanted to see the other skills too, and he opened them all at once. She was amazed by how many skills he had. He explained that the bronze color was for ability enhancement, the silver color was for techniques, and the gold color was for magic skills. There wasn't a cap on levels except for the rainbow colors, so the more he collected, the more he could enhance it. This time he didn't get any new skills, but he was able to level up a lot of useful skills, so it was still a good payoff. Livia started freaking out because she thought it was because of her that he couldn't get a new skill, but he comforted her that it was always like that. Also, he mentioned that since he had come to the lower world, he had always been all by himself, and it was fun to be able to spin the gacha with Livia like that. She seemed to be happy after he said that. It didn't take so long for her to fall asleep on Crest's lap. When looking at her, Crest remembered what the other goblins said about how Livia became more like a girl of her age again after meeting Crest. He thought she might fall asleep this easily because the tension was gone after playing with Gacha and decided to let her sleep like that. Meanwhile, somewhere in the forest, Veld attacked a werewolf village. The werewolves thought he came there to ally, but he said that the alliance presented by the werewolf king Veld provided that they all work for him as slaves. He gave them 2 options, being as slaves or dying right there. In the next scene, Orphe, Livia, and Crest decide to gather some gacha points down to the north area to prepare for the battle against the northern werewolves. Crest asked Orphe if he was sure this wasn't the territory of the northern werewolves, and he told him not to worry about it. He asked if there was any village besides Werewolf where they could form an alliance too. Orphe recalled a slime tribe somewhere in the area. After that, they fight off an enormous snake to save a slime. The slime wasn't injured and thanked them. Crest noticed that the slime was also demi-human. He asked what they were, and they introduced themselves. He was frightened by Orphe because he thought he was going to be killed. After calming down, he explained that the werewolf tribe that proposed the alliance to them intended to deceive them from the very beginning. Many of their people lost their lives and were burned to the ground, and now they were hiding somewhere in another area. Orphe felt so guilty that he couldn't stop him from doing what he was doing now. Crest thought about something and told the slime that he wanted him to set them up with a representative of the slime tribe. At first, he seemed uneasy about the idea, but eventually he agreed to guide them to the village. As they walked, he mentioned that whether or not they could leave the village would be up to the chieftain. Orphe apologized to Crest, saying that the slimes disliked them because of him, but Crest reassured him that it wasn't his fault. He emphasized that it was more important to focus on the future, rather than dwell on the past, which couldn't be changed. They entered a cave, and the slime boy informed them that the village was just up ahead. The cave had numerous pools of water and multiple exits, a design intended to help evade pursuers. Crest realized that gaining the villagers' trust might be a challenge. As they exited the cave, the boy pointed ahead and indicated that their village was in that direction. However, instead of a typical village, it was a large swamp. Suddenly, many slimes began to appear, clearly unsettled by the presence of a werewolf among them. The slimes seemed ready to attack, but someone ordered them to be silent. A long-haired woman stepped forward and asked Crest what they wanted from them. She also made it clear that they were not welcome there. Crest told everything about him and what happened. She appreciated that they saved one of their people, but wondered what he was hoping to get out of trying to unite subhumans and monsters. Crest simply said, "Alliance." Since both sides were threatened by the northern werewolves, it would be clever to join arms together. He could see why having a werewolf in their camp would be unsettling, but Orphe would never hurt a single one of them, and Crest was sure he would be able to help. This whole situation had made her dislike werewolves very much, but before that, they disliked humans too. She asked Crest if he had ever heard of Aquafield, the land of water. Crest was familiar with the many rumors surrounding that neighboring country. Known for its stable waterways that flowed steadily throughout the year, Aquafield had become a significant logistics hub, achieving considerable development. On the surface, it seemed like a beautiful utopia, but beneath that facade, there was a darker reality of slavery and suffering. She explained that during stormy days, the slimes were forced to hold back floodwaters and filter wastewater. Some of the people they knew were compelled to endure horrific conditions. After experiencing so much hardship and exploitation, the slimes began to develop their own egos, and she thought about running away. She asked if he knew how she managed to get out of there. Crest guessed that she might use one of those transfer magic circles in the country. The answer to that question was that she fell into the river. She didn't even think about where she was going to run away. When the guards weren't watching them, she ran down the river and then she fell into a big waterfall. The next thing she knew, she was washed up on the beach down there. She thought she could forget everything down there where there were no humans. In the end, the body had become a subhuman who looked exactly like a human being. Realizing that she had talked more than she should have, she asked if he understood why she didn't like humans. Crest was fine with her discomfort about humans and himself, but he reminded her that if the northern werewolves were to attack, they might be treating her as badly as or even worse than the water country. To his surprise, she stated that he misunderstood her because they were just tricked. If they got serious, they wouldn't lose, and even though they had low magic resistance when it came to physical attack, they had the advantage. Crest was sure there was no way the enemy would let them get away with something like that. She may not be showing it, but he could tell she was frustrated. On the inside, he asked if she wasn't interested in forming an alliance, and she responded that she had no intention of doing that, and she also didn't want further trouble from them coming at her right now. She was sure they would take care of the werewolf problem themselves, so until then, she wanted them to keep their hands off each other. Crest was okay with a neutral stance, and they shook hands. After that, Crest created something that looked like a wall. They were confused, so he explained that he wanted something sturdy, preferably made of stone, but his skill level wasn't high enough. And he would also like to have a watchtower with a high vantage point. She promised to give it a try, and she asked if the battle was about to begin. Crest responded that it wasn't confirmed yet, but they should start working on it if it happens. He told the ones who had high agility to take turns checking out the slime village. The slime village had a higher risk of being attacked first than this place. He knew they agreed to stay out of each other's way, but he didn't want to see any more causalities. They also needed to strengthen their weaponry, and this was the duty of the goblins, who had a smithing technique. Now it was time to get to work. Crest was thinking about helping out with barricades for now. Orphe came and asked if he could help him with his training. Accompanied by Livia, they started training. Orphe seemed to have difficulties and he kept rushing to win, but this didn't help him improve. Crest decided to take a short break. Orph realized that his status had risen considerably after Crest gave him the demon name, but he was still having a hard time forgetting the glare his brother gave him after he killed their father. It wasn't something a werewolf normally had. While he was saying that, Crest wondered something. He asked if Livia and Orphe had ever studied any kind of swordsmanship. Orphe responded that he learned how to use a sword for survival in a real battle. Livia didn't have what he called swordsmanship either. He then asked Orphe if he noticed anything in his fights with him. He did notice that Crest's movements were somewhat well-defined. Crest explained that this was swordsmanship. The swordsmanship that he learned was a technique that transformed the magic in his body into the 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and wind. For example, the fire sword style uses a fiery magic power to revitalize the body and increase healing ability and attack speed. Also, the water sword style could foresee the opponent's movement like a flowing stream of water, and finish them off with a single blow. Originally, one would learn swordsmanship with all 4 attributes, but they didn't have much time, so for now, Crest was planning to focus on the styles that they were good at. Orphe said he was never good with magic, and that was the reason why he had only fought with brute force. The outcome may not live up to Crest's expectations, but he still wants to stop his brother from going out of control and avenge his father and his friends. Crest comforted him by saying that he was going to be the strongest werewolf there was. Chaos was capturing the Banished house. The Duke was freaking out after being informed that Albert was kidnapped by the female goblins in the lower world. According to the story of the knight who escaped, Albert was stripped of his clothing by a female goblin, his legs were crushed by rocks, and he was taken away deep into the forest. The Duke didn't seem to handle all those wrong decisions that he made. The 4th son of the Halberst family, Leon Halberst, was there. He couldn't believe this was happening after all that talk about having a secret plan. Along with Crest, he had become an embarrassment to the Halberst family. He heard that Albert went down there with only his knights, and figured that it must have been really funny to see all those amateurs going down there with their heads in the sand. He entered a room where a woman named Marnus was standing. She agreed on everything he was thinking but ended up being slapped. He asked how long she intended to stay in her human form, and she changed into her real form. He reminded her to stop taking human form when she was alone with him. After that, he asked if the thing he wanted was ready. She took out a bunch of magic stones. The magic stone also had the effect of neutralizing harmful elements from the lower world. She was sure it would live up to Leon's expectations. Leon asked how much she remembered Crest. She only knew that he was Leon's younger brother. It seemed that even a fox spirit with a vast knowledge of magical tools could not resist a slave's collar. This one used to be Crest's maid, so he was worried that she might try something. He told her to get ready because he was going to the lower world tomorrow and bringing back Crest. Before he left, she smiled and mentioned that after he returned, Leon would be the head of this house. But the reaction was not positive. Being the head of the family was an inevitable result. He couldn't wait to take his revenge on him for the humiliation he had caused him in the past. Back in the days of the Royal Academy, Leon and Crest had a mock battle. As Crest was the strongest in the knight department, they were expecting Leon, his older brother, to be even stronger than him. But when the battle ended, everyone was shocked. Leon lost pretty easily. This was the embarrassment Crest caused to his brother. Back in the lower world, they finished their training and dispersed. Crest mentioned to Orph that he was getting much more refined with the fire sword style. He responded that the sinister, domineering air that his brother displayed. If there was even the slightest opening, it would swallow him up in a second. Crest wondered what his brother might seek. He said that he might take on the subhumans further north because there were more powerful monsters and subhumans. However, the way they did it was, as the slime tribe said, they forced them to follow through violence and fear. Orphe was aware that some northern werewolves had betrayed him, but he was sure there were more than a few of them out there who were still afraid of his brother and had no choice but to follow him. Crest stated that he wanted to help those people if he could. Noticing Orphe's face, he asked if something was wrong. He explained that he was acting just like himself. He said that his brother used to be a kind and strong man. They were good friends. He didn't know exactly when his brother went mad, and it could be that he gradually became a madman. If they could find out what was causing this, they might stop all this fighting. Orphe mumbled to himself, wondering if they could start over again. He didn't want to continue this conversation, so he said that they must build up their strength for the days to come. Suddenly, Goblia and Rufna appeared behind him and started pulling his hair. Confused, Crest asked what was wrong with them. They looked pretty mad, so Orphe guessed that they might want him to play with them. Judging by Goblia's reaction, his guess was true. He had been training so much lately that he hadn't had time for them at all. He apologized and promised to make it up to them now. Orphe informed him that he was going first. Watching him walk away, Crest was thinking about the thing he mumbled to himself. It wasn't his position to say that, but he really thought it would be much better if they could just start over. But if the relationship cannot be repaired, it is his responsibility to stop his brother. In the next scene, we see the academic days of Crest's life, when he was once accused of bribing the students to lose by offering them money, and for that reason he failed the night's exam. At the principal's office, he denied those accusations, but the principal didn't believe his words. When his brothers heard about this, they all started beating him for embarrassing their family. Meanwhile, Leon was behind the wall, smirking with satisfaction. Crest started to hear voices and scream, but thankfully it was just a nightmare. Livia woke him up when she saw him groaning in his sleep. Crest explained to her that it was just a weird dream, and he was okay. It seemed like it would take a while to get over the traumatic past he had. Crest asked if something had happened. When they went outside, an injured werewolf was trying to survive while waiting for the potions. Crest asked what happened, and he tried to explain that he made a mistake, and 3 werewolves found him. When they gave him a potion, one of them expressed how amazing it was for him to make it back alive. He responded that it was all thanks to his daily training. Crest thanked him for his report and told him to get some rest. He then wanted to have a word with Orphe. He was thinking that those 3 werewolves didn't kill him on purpose. He decided to trail them and find out what they were up to. Using his perception technique, he easily found them and told everyone that they were going after them. While the werewolves were running, the floor cracked and started to rise. Orphe appeared behind them and told them that he could not let them leave. They didn't seem intimidated by him, and they even started insulting him. Crest came and stated that he was the leader of the group that Orphe was in right now, and if they got something to say, they should say it to him. Surprisingly, they didn't take him seriously either, and they started making fun of Orphe even more. Crest and Livia were pissed, but Orphe told them that there was something ominous coming from the 3 of them. It was the same as for his brother Veld. He had a bad feeling about this, so he wanted them to stay on their guard. Veld's werewolf said they didn't need to run away from a loser and decided to cut his head off and give it to Veld as a souvenir. One of them took out a magic stone and swallowed it like a pill. He said that with the magic stone, he would become stronger like Veld. Their bodies started to transform, and they all turned into real wolves. Crest and the others were too puzzled to react fast. But thankfully, Crest warned them when they were about to attack. Livia was able to counterattack, but she noticed that the damage she was doing was recovering instantly. She told Crest that those people had been abnormally enhanced with magic stones. Crest seemed to notice that too and told them not to let their opponent's pace get the better of them. He told her to remember her training. Livia focused and used water style to kill the wolf. She managed to pierce the magic stone in his body and killed him right after that. She told the others to aim for the magic stone, and if it became assimilated into the body, it would be hard to handle. They listened to her and did what she said, and somehow they managed to beat them. But if those guys didn't return, the people in the north would notice something was wrong and they might come back to investigate this whole area shortly. Because of his silence, Crest asked if he was okay. He said that there was no mercy for those people, and he was once approached by an outsider who offered a deal with a magic stone. He couldn't make out the dealer's face because of the hood, but he did remember that he referred to himself as a vampire. Livia explained that vampire tribes, demon fox tribes, and other races proficient in magic arts were also capable of making various magical tools. Orphe knew that his father was a man of chivalry and hated magical tools, so the seller was turned away at the door. He would have never thought that he was selling magic stones to his brother behind his back. But with this, they were no longer subhuman, they were demons. It was crazy that they let young people have access to this kind of stuff. After that, they returned to the village, and Crest informed everyone that they had taken out the men from the north who were in the previous village. Now that this other side was expanding its reach, they needed to be on their toes and keep up their training. He decided not to mention the magic stones for now because it would only backfire if they started feeling threatened. With their current strength, at worst, they could be wiped out. Knowing that, Crest decided to head to the slime village again. Orphe asked if he was going for an alliance, and he responded that besides that, they needed to share information about the magic stone. I said they were a race that was weak against magic and magic stones, and magical tools could be a threat to the slimes. So it was better to tell them in advance, and if all goes well, maybe they will change their minds. Orphe asked if he could come with him, but he said that someone else was coming with him today. He had been doing a lot of training and all that stuff lately, and it made Goblia kind of sulky. So today the 3 of them were going to do some exploring in the woods, which they hadn't done in a while. He turned to Rufna and explained that they needed to head out today. He asked if Goblia was still in a bad mood. With time running short, he considered using his summoner skill to call her, but Rufna stopped him. She insisted that he should follow her scent and find her himself. Although he was concerned about the movements of the werewolves in the north, he had already instructed Goblia to alert him immediately if she spotted any danger. Deciding to go along with Rufna's suggestion, he handed her a potion just in case and told her to lead the way to Goblia. Meanwhile, Goblia was in the forest, happily making flower crowns for herself and Crest while daydreaming about them getting married. Suddenly, someone appeared behind her and knocked her down. It was Leon, who asked if she was the female goblin who had beaten up his brother. Rufna was unable to smell Goblia's scent, which was unusual because her sense of smell must have been pretty well developed because he had a demon name. Seeing her being devastated to help, Crest comforted her that it was fine. He said that it might be that her nose wasn't feeling so good today. For now, they decided to go to the last place that had her scent. While grabbing Goblia's head, Leon said that the reason she didn't sense him was because this whole space had already been contained by the smoke dispersed by the guide of the lower world. He told her to answer if she recognized the circled face and if she didn't want her skull to be crushed. She seemed to have a very high status for a mere goblin, so he expected her to at least answer if she knew him. Seeing Albert's face in the picture, Goblia grabbed Leon's hand. He told her that she could not hurt him now and that it was useless. He continued to torture her, but Goblia didn't answer anything. Eventually, he dropped her to the ground. His knights asked if he was hurt, but there was no way he could. While he was distracted, Goblia took out a potion and immediately attacked Leon. But before she could hit him, one of the knights punched her ribs and knocked her down. After seeing her carrying a potion, it was confirmed that she knew Crest. So he told the torture knights to get her to tell them where he was. Meanwhile, Crest and Rufna were still looking for her in the woods. He was pretty puzzled as to what the hell happened. It wasn't just Rufna's sense of smell, even the detection technique and summoning could not be used. And the appraisal didn't work on the northern werewolf's magic stone that he defeated this morning. Things were constantly changing, and yet, he felt bad for not being more vigilant. As he was freaking out about not knowing what he was supposed to do, Rufna approached him, aiming for comfort. Hugging her calmed him down a lot, and this was exactly the kind of time they needed to keep their cool. Somehow, Rufna looked shining to him. It wasn't his imagination. She was glowing realistically. He used his appraisal skills on her, and he saw something that shocked him. Despite enduring all the torture, Goblia remained silent, refusing to give in. Frustrated, Leon eventually gave up and ordered his subordinates to find Crest while he waited. As they left, a potion bottle struck Leon's back, making him realize that Goblia had mustered her last bit of strength to literally attack him. This act of defiance infuriated Leon, and in his rage, he decided that he would kill her. His anger was compounded by the fact that nothing was going according to his plan. Goblia lay motionless on the ground, seemingly defeated. But then, to everyone's surprise, she began to rise, and her injuries started healing at an incredible rate. The knights were baffled, unable to understand what was happening. However, Leon quickly realized that this miraculous recovery was the result of a skill. He speculated that it was likely drawing on the life force of the surrounding flowers in large quantities. Leon wondered if Goblia possessed doctoral skills, but he knew that unlike humans and subhumans, monsters like Goblia could only have skills that were unique to their kind. As this was unfolding, the people who had been carrying smoke to obscure the area suddenly began to die. Their bodies were gruesomely split in half, leaving the remaining knights in shock. Out of the dispersing smoke, Rufna appeared, leading them to wonder if she was responsible for the deaths. Meanwhile, Goblia had risen, into the sky, glowing with a strange and powerful light. At the same time, Crest was elsewhere, using his monster evolution technique. Seeing Goblia fully recovered from her wounds, the soldiers were pleased because they wanted to torture her more. However, Goblia literally put her feet in the soldier's mouth and ripped his head off with ease. They were shocked but thought she was only attacking the exposed skin on the face and closing the mouth would solve the problem. But she struck him so strongly that the impact went through and messed up the inside of his armor. Goblia, hearing Crest's voice, immediately turned to him and hugged him. It was fortunate that the surrounding plants were flowers with high healing properties. He appraised that boundary removal incense dust that neutralized Rufna's sense of smell. Thanks to Wolf's unique skill, the olfactory technique, which she acquired through evolution, they were able to break through the smoke, but the reason his summoner and detection technique didn't work was unknown. His brother Leon called him, and now it was time they had a little talk. He asked if he came here to bring him back like Albert. Leon had the information of what happened to Albert, so Crest assumed that if he knew that much, he should know he wasn't going back. He wanted to say that he would let this one go if he just went home quietly, but putting Goblia in such a terrible mess like this was unforgivable for Crest. Leon didn't take him seriously, and showed him the magic stone in his chest, leaving Crest shocked. He said that he didn't have any desire to do anything for those in the upper world, and the reason he was here was because he only wanted to kill him. Seeing the magic stone, Crest figured out why his skills were being interfered with. He asked where on earth he got that magic stone, as it should be hard to get one in the upper world. Leon responded that he had it made by his former maid, Marna. Marna's was the subhuman of the fox spirit, and Crest was sure she kept her true identity a secret from everyone but him. Leon asked why he was shocked that his maid had been taken away. Crest decided that now wasn't the time to be prying into Marna's. Even though the magic stone was assimilated into his body, Lean was still able to maintain his ego. He wondered if he would go out of control like the werewolves did this morning. Deciding to find out more, he asked if the magic stone had some terrible side effects. Leon thought he was feeling bitter because he lost his maid, and told him that he was the only person in the upper world who was incompetent enough to trust a subhuman, and all the crude stuff had been removed by having the sinners and slaves swallow it first. Crest realized that his brother was still doing things in devious ways. Though Leon was quite reluctant to swallow something that had once gone down a sinner's throat, thanks to that, he was stronger. An unexpected attack followed his words and stunned him for a moment. All Leon could think was the revenge he was going to get after the humiliation he suffered in the upper world. Crest only defended himself for a while, but his attacks were so strong that he couldn't resist anymore. Leon challenged him to show him what he could do with that Gacha skill. Crest reminded his brother that he had no idea how terrifying the magic stone was. Skill was a power bestowed by the Almighty God, but magic stones were merely human and subhuman imitations of miracles. His words did not affect Leon, and he even thought he was preaching as he realized that he couldn't win against him. He dared him to show him the proof of the power of God. Seeing him insisting so much, Crest gave up on trying to convince him, and decided to speak in his language, which was violence. With only using his fist, he beat him up so badly that he couldn't even see them coming. Crest explained that this skill was a bronze one, and it was the lowest rarity skill in Gacha. Surprisingly, Leon grinned through those injuries and told him to use some higher rarity skills because his wounds healed pretty quickly thanks to the magic stone. He decided that it was his turn and used his wind chitter skill to attack him, but Crest's slashing technique dodged this attack. Realizing his attacks didn't work on Crest, Leon started wobbling. At that moment, Crest realized that the revenge he was talking about was about the day he challenged him to a duel and lost. Leon got so mad that he thought the humiliation he suffered was only about that day. He was rebelling against Crest for looking down on him and taking everything away from him. He was the only one Leon would never forgive and used his tornado cutter skill to kill him. Crest didn't think that even Leon could create such powerful wind magic. He knew the effect of the magic stone was terrifying, but with the increased weight and spinning speed, the thrust was now lower. It was like asking people to dodge. Suddenly, a hand grabbed Crest from his back and stopped him from dodging Leon's attacks. Leon was sure it was over now, but he forgot that Crest wasn't alone anymore. Goblia and Rufna came right on time to save Crest, ripping off that man's heart. Apparently, he also swallowed the magic stone. He concluded that as long as the heart was fine, the magic stone could still control you. As Leon was cursing his luck, Crest asked if he was getting it now. He told him that a headless corpse just helped him, and that proves how dangerous the magic stone was. He told him to return to the upper world while his senses were still intact because there was nothing he could do about it. Leon yelled at him to shut up and took out even more magic stones. Just because he couldn't afford to lose anymore, he swallowed them all. Crest told him to spit it, but it was too late now. He immediately felt an ominous and menacing power coming from him. As Leon was screaming in victory that his magic power was increasing, it seemed that it increased so much and caused his head to explode. Crest concluded that his body could no longer withstand the magic stone now, and at this rate, the magic stone could go out of control. He has to stop his heart as soon as possible. He was feeling sad that hatred could drive a person to this extent. Using water flow, he aimed to stop his heartbeat gently, but the moment before he did it, the magic stone went out of control and injured him. Leon got up and turned into a monster with wings. Crest was hurt so bad that his consciousness was about to go, and he couldn't use any skill to stop that. In the next scene, Leon recalls a memory when his mother was telling him that he was going to have a little brother or sister soon, and when he does, he should be nice to them. Suddenly his mother disappeared and he was left alone. Now he was looking for Crest, his brother, to kill him. Goblia used her healing potion to save Crest, but his left arm was completely gone and he was not moving. While sobbing, Goblia and Rufna did everything in their power to save him, but nothing they did worked enough to save him. Goblia gave up and started crying her eyes out as she lost her beloved friend. Suddenly, an emergency program appeared out of nowhere. The notice stated that a critical error had occurred on the physical body of the holder of the skill monster taming technique, and an emergency maintenance would begin in 5 seconds. Worried, Goblia and Rufna had to sit there and watch what was going to happen. The program then stated that during maintenance, a large amount of life energy of the evolved monsters or subhumans with demon names would be transferred. Therefore, it is recommended to commence in an environment where sufficient life energy is available. In addition, the provision of this maintenance process varies depending on the level of the skill monster taming. The 5 seconds passed and a shiny ball appeared on his body. Goblia and Rufna couldn't stop themselves from moaning. The program recovered the damaged parts of Crest's body and retransferred the lost blood. Emergency maintenance was completed and Crest's body was back to normal. As the light magic disappeared, Crest opened his eyes and asked if they saved him. While his precious friends were sobbing, Crest smiled and thanked them. After the hugging and crying ceremony was over, Crest checked his body and there was no scar at all. He then asked what happened to Leon because the last thing he remembered was that he was trying to finish him off. After getting the news from Goblia and Rufna, he figured that his perception technique would be blocked by the magic stone. Suddenly he found himself in the middle of nowhere, and there was only Leon standing in front of his mother's grave. He realized that he was in Leon's memories. Leon was telling his mother that the moment Crest was gone, all of his brothers started attacking him. Crest figured that he could see this memory because of the magic stone going out of control and coming directly into his head. Leon told his mother that when she died and Crest was born, the Halberst family was cursed. His brothers couldn't get along with each other, and as long as Crest was alive, disaster would continue to befall them. He wanted his mother to watch over him from heaven. Suddenly he turned to Crest and stated that the humiliation he suffered at the hands of that man, he shall avenge his mother's murder too. With that, the memory ended, and Crest confirmed that Magic Stone blocked their skills but flooded their heads with memories of that side with no hesitation. He was sick of hearing that just being alive was a disaster. He apologized to Goblia and Rufna, as they would have to bear with those stupid siblings a little longer. He was determined that the three of them would stop Leon. Meanwhile, Leon was trying to find him in anger. He then saw Rufna and immediately went to her to attack. Before he could reach her, she used her howling skill and stopped him. Crest gave Goblia the signal and they both started running towards him from back and front. The evolved wolf's unique skill would temporarily put the target in a binding state. Goblia and Crest aimed for the magic stone and ripped it off from his chest. With that, Leon's body started disappearing. The backlash from the enormous amount of magic flowing into the body was causing the body to become astral, and not even Crest's skill could stop it now. Before Leon completely disappeared, Crest told him that he had already severed his ties with the upper world and didn't care what happened to them now. But as for his mother, he apologized for that. After hearing that, Leon saw his mother opening her arm to him. Leon was so happy in his last seconds and left this world in peace. Back in the upper world, Marnus was in her human form, cleaning the mansion with the other maidens. While cleaning the windows, she wondered if Leon had returned yet. She suddenly heard the other maidens talking about how the Duke lost his sons one after the other. Just as she planned, Leon died in the lower world and now she could come for Crest. In the next scene, Crest was explaining to Orphe and the others what happened while he was trying to go to the Slime Tribe's village. He then noticed Livia staring at him from a distance. When he asked what was wrong, she called him mean, and stated that she also wanted to be of help to him. Crest asked Orphe if he didn't tell her, but apparently she wanted to hear from him directly. Crest apologized and explained that he was in a hurry. She angrily said she didn't care, which made him realize that it was his first time seeing her angry and it was somehow refreshing. Even though she seemed pretty touched by his words, she tried to act tough and told him that there was more he wanted to ask about. She asked about Goblia's new look. He explained that both Rufna and Goblia evolved. She congratulated them on that but was still confused about her outfit. He responded that the clothes were made using tailoring techniques and he tried to imagine the outfit described in the book he read at the night school library. He was actually proud of the whole fit, which Livia completely agreed with. But the thing was that it seemed like certain things had grown bigger. He thought she meant her height and Goblia started jumping, causing her breasts to shake. Livia ran away after calling him an idiot for not getting what she meant. Orphe came and asked if they were going to do the gacha without Livia. He wanted to wait because Livia was looking forward to spinning the gacha too. He then asked if he could tell him about what happened in the slime village first. Previously in the meeting with Svi, Crest informed her that 3 werewolves came to the village this morning and all of them had magic stones. He hadn't told her before, but Orphe, who was next to him earlier, was the younger brother of the current werewolf king. In the past, Orphe was approached by a vampire for a magic stone deal but refused, but apparently his older brother Veld later made the deal. He told Svi that vampires were skilled not only in magic stones but also in crafting magical tools, and he thought it would be pretty hard for the slime tribe to solve the problem by themselves from now on. She understood what he was saying, but that would mean they would end up joining a community with the werewolves. If she did that, she wouldn't be able to face their comrades who were killed. She once again refused to form an alliance with him. Crest didn't insist on her and stood up. While walking away, he told her that given her position as the leader, she had her own considerations as well. But if anything happened, he would help her to get through this difficult time together. Back to the present, Crest stated that although they couldn't form an alliance, it looked like they also felt the urgency, so it was worth going. Orphe suddenly apologized, which surprised Crest. He said that the inhabitants of this forest used to be somewhat wary of humans coming down from the upper realm. In the first place, there were hardly any conflicts among the demi-humans. The werewolves ended up disrupting the order of the lower realm. Crest was aware that he was getting pretty worked up, so he told him that he was carrying too much on his own. He stood up and told him that he would handle the mediation with the demi-humans, and he just needed to focus on stopping his brother's rampage. He said to him that he was thinking deeply about the entirety of the lower realm. To comfort him even more, he told him that he was the one who was worthy of being the werewolf king. Before Orphe could say anything, Livia came back. One of the werewolves was watching Orphe, and he informed his friends that he didn't seem well. The werewolf named Kiba stated that he had made up his mind. His friends tried to warn him that if he went back to that village now, he would be reprimanded, but he knew that. But even so, it was much better than sitting still here and watching Orphe like that. Meanwhile, in the upper realm, a maid informed Ellis that the head of the family was calling for her. Ellis dressed up and went to his father's room. Her father stated that he had heard her successfully handle the matter of monster extermination. It was tough for her as she had been sent all over the place and used like a tool. Her father had 2 reports for her. First, Leon, the 4th son who was dispatched to the lower realm, hasn't returned. It appears that the guide from the lower realm had started a search and they found the bodies of his companion. But they say Leon was not anywhere to be found. Ellis remembered Leon from the battle with Crest at the academy. That time, she told Leon in advance that Crest was going to take it easy on him, while also telling Crest to not go easy on him at all. As a result, all the hate was directed at Crest, which was a masterpiece for her. The other thing her father wanted to report was that there were rumors of unsettling movements within the Mishicillian family. It was said that there was a possibility that Minu Mishicillian would also participate in that search party. Due to the continuing increase in monster attacks, even the king has changed his stance and prioritized defense. With Minu's participation, the Mishicillian family would face quite a risk. However, he didn't think it was an ill-considered dispatch because by sending Minu, who was close to Crest, they would certainly wait to ensure a successful outcome. In that case, Ellis wanted to hurry to the lower realm, but her father said no. He told her to think carefully about the situation and not be swayed by mere rumors. He suggested they should just contribute to the country without worrying about anything else. Even though her father had a point, Ellis couldn't stop thinking about Minu being in contact with Crest. She recalled the moment when she told her that all Crest wanted was freedom, and that if she went there, she should probably never go back. She decided to tell the truth to her father and stated that she was not attached to her noble status, and if Crest were to choose to stay in the lower realm, it is believed that Minu would remain with him. Her father asked how she could be so sure, and she confirmed to him that she had spoken to her about it before. If that was the case, he said that he could stop Minu from being dispatched to the lower realm. She then wanted to include herself, but her father was very strict about not letting her go down there. After their talk, he sent her back to her room. Ellis had a mental breakdown over their conversation. All she wanted was to see Crest. In Slime Village, Sphy was looking at the stars while thinking about their meeting with Crest. Suddenly, she was informed that an army of werewolves was heading this way. Veld was coming at them at full speed. Crest was also informed about this attack and he gathered everyone to head there. He told Livia and the others to defend the village in case of emergency. She wanted to stay by Crest's side and help him, but Crest held her shoulders and asked her to understand him. If she was here, he would feel a lot more at ease and could use all his strength. Livia was touched by his words and realized that she, who awaited the return of her lord who goes to the battlefield, was a wife-like somehow. Convincing herself like that, Livia wished the best of luck for him. Now that they settled that, he was about to tell the others to prepare, but then something hit his shoulder. The goblins asked what was wrong and he said it was nothing. But then it happened again. Suddenly, a werewolf approached and reported a very serious problem. It was noted that 3 of their subordinates had defected. At the village of the northern werewolf tribe, Kiba and his friends were asking to join Veld's group. Veld didn't seem too pleased with this request and told him to raise his head. He told him that a while back their guy went to the village where they were but had not returned yet. He asked if he knew anything about it. Kiba knew that Crest took care of them, so he told him that it was their new human leader who did it. The crowd was not happy to hear that they had a human leader. Veld heard rumors about an unusually strong person appearing in the lower realm, but didn't expect him to become the leader over at his brother's place. They started insulting Orphe because of how unloyal his subordinates were. Veld was okay with them in their group, but he wanted something in return. To show the appropriate level of sincerity, he asked them to show him their resolve as a werewolf. Kiba took the knife and stated that he was prepared for everything, and cut his little finger to prove that. After that, while enjoying his time with the woman wolves, Veld was asked if he was sure about letting those guys in. The others were sure they were up to something if they showed up on a day like this. Veld wasn't worried that they were because his group wouldn't be affected by something like that. He asked if he was willing to stay up all night watching them. The other werewolf teased him and he wanted to change the subject as he was embarrassed. He then reminded Veld that he didn't take that sword this time and suggested slashing those slimes in pieces with that. As for Veld's response, he kicked him so hard that he went through the wall. He was pretty annoyed by how loud this guy was. The others thought how idiotic to talk about that sword because it was forbidden to do that. Despite Veld's relentless pursuit of power, that sword remained the one thing he couldn't obtain. When it was time to leave, he ordered everyone to swallow the magic stones. With that, the conquest began. Meanwhile, Crest, Orf, and their team were walking quietly to the slime village. Orphe's attitude impressed lots of werewolves as he kept his composure after Kiba and the others left. Orphe was thinking about the time when he and his brother were battling and he lost. After that loss, his father brought Kiba, Rue, and Kai as his coaches to train him. At first, Orphe acted superior towards Kiba, who was just trying to shoot his hand. Kiba ended up beating Orphe really badly. His father told Orphe that he was giving him time until the next full moon, and by then, he wanted him to become strong enough to fight them evenly in a 3-on-1 battle. If he can't do that, he was disowned. When his father left, Kiba asked him what he was going to do as they were out of time. Orphe got so angry and decided to beat all 3 of them to a pulp. He trained hard, ate well, and rested until the full moon arrived, and when it was time for them to fight, he defeated all 3 of them as he said. Their friendship meant a lot to Orphe, so even though he seemed calm, he was upset and worried on the inside. Meanwhile, at the Veld's place, Kiba, Rue, and Kai were trying to recover. Kiba's finger unfortunately didn't regenerate. He told the others that if they tried to sneak in, Veld's nose would sniff them out right away. They can't deceive them without doing this much. From the start, he had been ready to sacrifice his life for Orphe, and losing a finger or 2 wasn't a big deal for him. Even so, everything has gone according to plan up to this point. Whoever's been disloyal gets thrown into the cell they were in first, and tonight most of the guys were out, so the security was thinking. Above all, the main reason they came here was still there. The sword is left by the boss of Lord Orf. To steal the sword, Kiba was counting on Rue's lockpicking skill. With that sword, they hoped that Lord Orf would make a comeback and they would settle their boss's regrets. At the slime village, Svi and Veld were facing each other. He didn't recall telling her about the visitation day, but he noticed that she had gathered the entire slime tribe to welcome them. He assumed she couldn't wait for the birth of the new leader that much. Svi simply responded that werewolves were species that become most aggressive on the night of the full moon, so she knew he would come to attack tonight. There was something off about his minions, and Svi knew it was clearly not because of the full moon. She figured that the story about the magic stone was true, and told Veld to go back as the slime tribe would not become his slaves. Hearing her decision, Veld decided to eradicate every single one of them. Svi transformed herself and stated that he would not let him have this village. Suddenly, she started doing something that made the other slimes run away. The werewolves were confused. They noticed that right behind her was a swamp, and they didn't want to let her run into it if things got bad. They started attacking her, but the punches were being sent through her body and then burned their fist. They realized that her whole body was made of acid, and when they touched her, they melted. The little slimes joined the battle and started falling from the trees like rain and melting the werewolves. As they were distracted, Svi killed them with ease. The others were shocked by how powerful she was. Svi believed that they could win this war and told her slimes to melt all the werewolves completely. The werewolves started panicking as to what they should do. Veld realized that Svi knew about the magic stones. But more importantly, those slimes weren't acid slimes to begin with. Acid slime was only supposed to be found in areas where there was constant acid spewing. That was the case. That acid was probably a skill, but he didn't think there was a way so many slimes would have the same skill like this. When Svi told them to back off as they had no chance to win, Veld already noticed her trick and attacked the tree behind her. He figured that she planned to refine strong acids with skill while drawing water from the swarm. Acid was then sent through a tube from her feet to the slime on the tree, and when that was the case, cutting off the supply network was enough to stop that. While Veld was downgrading Svi, someone with a knife tried to attack Veld but was easily killed in a second. Veld started to get angry and ordered his men to kill all the slime. As werewolves started attacking the slimes, Svi couldn't do anything but cry. She didn't want to see them getting killed, so she told Veld that she would do what he said, but it was too late for Veld now. He told her that she was responsible for all of this, and she should look closely at her comrades dying for that bullshit family pride of hers. Suddenly, Crest appeared behind the werewolves. With his hands in his pockets, he killed 5 werewolves in a second. He told Veld that using the full moon to one's advantage was a typical tactic for a werewolf, but relying on the magic stone didn't seem to be a very honorable thing to do. Veld asked who he was, and he responded that he was Svi's friend. In the next scene, we see little Veld asking Orphe if his injuries from the last match were okay. Orphe said that he was fine and praised his brother for being so strong. Veld then asked about Kiba coaching Orphe, but he denied that he was. He said that their father went and did something unnecessary again. Being trained by his peers made him feel bad, so he said that they were just friends. After that, he praised his brother once again for being able to do anything on his own. At that moment, Veld wondered if Orphe was more suited for it than he was. Orphe responded that everyone in the village was saying that the strongest brother would be the next leader, so he should spare him with sudden jokes. Back to the present, Veld didn't believe Crest was Svi's friend. Crest firmly responded that he wasn't kidding. The slime tribe was his friend and he was there to help. The goblin informed Crest that they were all ready and waiting for his orders. Veld slightly injured Svi with his sword and told Crest to get lost or she would get killed. He figured that Crest was the guy he had been hearing about and wanted to see his skills. To show him the skills, Crest used his agility enhancement and saved Svi from Veld's sword with ease. He asked her what he just did and Crest simply responded that he just used a skill. He also noticed that he didn't swallow the magic stone like the rest of them. Veld seemed surprised that he noticed that. Crest then asked Svi what was wrong and she simply told him to drop her off now. Svi felt guilty for getting herself indebted again. Crest requested she leave this to them for now. She responded that she once succumbed to Veld's violence and that she no longer had the right to meddle as a leader. This response was unexpected. Even though she gave up on the leadership position, Svi asked Crest to help everyone in the village. While the goblins were trying to heal as much slime as possible, werewolves were fighting. Veld's comrades were puzzled as to why things ended up like this. Veld made his decision and asked Crest to duel him. If he won, he would take both this village and his village, and if Crest won, he could do as he pleased with them. Right now, a duel is the best way to figure things out. That's what Crest wanted too, but he said he wasn't the one Veld was dueling with. Orphe appeared behind him, indicating that he was the one Veld would fight. Veld turned to him and said he would end it here by exposing his shame since he was so pitifully pathetic. Orphe responded that it was actually Veld who was exposing his own shame, and he wouldn't let someone who continues to bring disgrace upon their family live any longer. Veld asked Crest if he was sure about this because if Orphe lost, the conditions wouldn't change. Crest was fine with it, but Svi seemed unpleased. He reminded her that he told her to leave it to them, but Svi was still worried about the future of the slime tribe. Crest tried to calm her down and said it would be okay now because Orphe would definitely win. The duel started and Orphe was the first one to attack. A half-hearted attack wouldn't be able to damage Veld as he had been strengthened by the magic stone. He used fire sword style to attack. Even though Veld was shocked by how fast he was, he managed to dodge his attack. He figured that his brother learned swordsmanship. Orphe said Crest taught him that and he would defeat him right here. As they were battling, Veld was telling him that it was absurd to think that he could beat him with such fake swordsmanship. He called Opre's leader cruel too, but Orphe refused to stand for any more disrespect towards the old man or Crest. After that, his attack made Veld drop his sword. Werewolves were shocked that Veld lost it. Orphe said it was over now, but Veld started grinning. Suddenly, he told his brother that his name was Veld, and when he was confused, he attacked right on his neck. He was so fast that he couldn't even see what was going on. Meanwhile, Goblia, Livia, and Rufna were watching over the village. The goblins wanted Livia to take a short break and leave it to them, but Livia refused to hand it over to them. Crest was fighting right now, and at the very least, she wanted to fight together in spirit. She thought about the moment when Crest told Orphe that he could become the strongest werewolf and prayed for their well-being. But unfortunately, Orphe wasn't in good condition. Veld had a shocking power and his punches were almost deadly. He figured that this abnormal power-up was not just from the magic stone. Veld confirmed him and revealed that he had a magic name. He said that he felt like he had been reborn with his magic name Veld. He said that Orphe felt the same way when he received his magic name from that human. Now he wondered how Orphe was going to resist fighting with someone who had magic stones, magic names, and innate talents. He punched and knocked down him with ease. This situation made him recall a memory when they had a duel, and the other werewolves were concerned about Veld. He looked like a completely different person, and didn't even listen to Orphe, who was telling him to stop. His father had to stop him with a fist, and he figured that he had taken a magic stone from outsiders. To make him suffer the consequences, his father had to be exiled to an island and lose everything. He vowed to work for the prosperity of the family, and after completing his duty, he reflected on his past actions. However, despite that, he didn't change. Orphe asked him why he walked such a misguided path. Veld didn't answer his question and told him that he was the one who was being betrayed by his own trusted aide and showed the finger Kiba cut. He proved that his bond was nothing but a child's play. Veld then asked him if he had finally given up because Orphe was frozen. He was glad it looked like they would be getting a lot more slaves all at once. Using Orphe's shock, he decided to finish him off and then kill the whole island. Right before he was about to slash his throat, Kiba stopped him. He was holding the late boss's sword. The first thing Orphe asked was where were Rue and Kai, but unfortunately, they were acting as decoys to shake off the pursuers. Kiba stated that this sword could only be drawn by Lord Orphe, who has been named as the leader of the group. He threw the sword to Orphe and asked him to accept the wishes of the werewolf tribe. The sword went right into Orphe's hands, and the moment he grabbed it, he saw his father. His father stated that if he was seeing this vision now, that meant he was not here anymore. He told everyone to listen carefully. He explained that the werewolves have always maintained the order of this forest with their superior physical abilities. But at some point it turned into violence and they became feared by other races. That used to be a good thing during his father's time. But now, the criminals sent from the upper realm were becoming a threat in the lower realm. Werewolves need to change their old ways and work together with other races. He told Orphe that he was going to be the man who would become a pillar for the demi-human, and he instructed him to lead the inhabitants of this forest with kindness and courage. He then turned to Veld and asked him to listen. He said that power beyond one's means confuses the soul and true strength was born from understanding each other and walking together. From now on, he wanted them to work together and protect the werewolves and the lower realms. What he was trying to say was, just like the old days, he wanted them to get along well as brothers. He disappeared after that and left everyone sobbing. Orphe did receive his father's wishes, but he didn't think they would do that. However, when Veld said he was something else with a normal tone, he thought something could change. But it was useless because he turned back to his evil side immediately. He thought it was a somewhat useful sword, but it was just sealed with an old man's lecture. He got pretty mad and stabbed Kiba for showing something useless to them. Crest told the goblins to get the potion and seemed worried about Orphe now. When Orphe fell on top of his knees, Svi thought everything was over now. Veld said he deceived him, so he deserved to be killed. But what Orphe couldn't forgive was himself for harboring even the slightest doubt about those guys. Crest noticed something different in Orphe's aura. He then received a notification, asking if he would like to start Orphe's evolution. Crest asked Orphe if he could kill Veld as he was now. He said that his brothers were all terrible people, but his brother was different and he understood how he felt. However, he needs to decide on his resolve once and for all. He asked him again if he could kill Veld. Orphe was strict about his decision to kill him. He murdered his father and then took the life of his friend. He was not going to hesitate anymore and kill him here. Crest had been waiting for those words and used his monster evolution technique to start his evolution. A bright light appeared and Orphe transformed within a second. His hair was longer and he seemed more dedicated to fighting with him now. Veld started attacking him and said what Crest did to him was a waste of time. He then noticed that Orphe's hair blocked his powerful attack. While transforming his arms, Orphe told him that the real waste of time was trying to attack him. Veld thought it was just body hair and he could slice it up, but no matter how strong he was, he couldn't injure him. Orphe caught him off guard and made his last attack as the leader of the werewolf tribe. He slashed his body and injured him so badly that he couldn't move. Before he died, Veld stated that everyone was talking about cooperation and coexistence, and at this rate, they would be taken over by the other races, and the werewolf tribe was finished. Crest responded that the one he was talking about was the person who gave his name and he was being manipulated by them. Veld was confused, so he explained that those who receive a magic name could never defy their master for life, and even if werewolves ruled the lower realm by force, they would simply take everything away. They wanted to avoid unification of the lower realm. That's why they gave him a magic name and made him kill his father. Veld couldn't help but tear up after learning that he was being played like a doll. Suddenly, Orphe hugged him very tightly. Veld was shocked and didn't think he deserved this because he killed their father and his friend. The other werewolves were shocked that Veld was showing a pathetic side. Orphe stated that it was true that he couldn't stand him, but he was still his older brother. Veld grabbed Orphe's arm and begged him to kill the person who gave him the magic name. But before he could say the name, he started to vomit blood and died right there. After they buried him, Crest explained that it was likely that a curse preventing the master's name from being spoken was placed on him. Orphe recalled his father saying that there was a curse on Veld that took years to lift. His brother, who had completed his sentence, seemed to have completely returned to his old self, but in reality, the curse was eating away at him even more. Crest said the one who gave the magic name to Veld was quite a troublesome opponent. Their objective was still unclear, but sooner or later they would stand in their way. Orphe seemed down again and said he would visit Kiba and the others' graves, but he was shocked when Kiba, Rue, and Kai were there, calling out for him. Kiba congratulated Orphe for his win but ended up getting a punch in his face. Apparently, he punched him to make sure he wasn't a ghost or anything. Crest explained to him that Kiba was saved because the potion got to him quickly. From the start, he had scouts keeping an eye on the three of them. Orphe was confused because of the letter saying they would be back. He said that if he really thought they betrayed him, then that meant he had a moment of weakness. Orphe hit him again and told him that weak Orphe was gone and he wouldn't let anyone get killed again. He told them to shut up and follow the werewolf king Orphe now. Svi came and wanted to ask something. She asked what he was planning to do if things really got dangerous during that duel. Crest stated that their lives were on the line here and he didn't care about going out of the rules and stopping them. Svi transformed into his old self and kneeled in front of Crest, stating that she was going to serve him from that moment. Crest was surprised because he thought the slime tribe was supposed to hate humans. Svi responded that if they just stayed as the slime tribe like this, eventually even more dangerous enemies would invade. And she also felt like her fighting skills and leadership were dependable. But that wasn't the only reason. She had also taken a liking to the taste of his sweat. At first it was when they shook hands, and then when he held her just now. She could feel her instincts craving for his bodily fluids. She leaned on him while saying that she would be expecting lots of treats from now on, which caused him to freak out. The next day, Ellis's maid wondered if she was awake and suggested she step outside to get some fresh air. When she entered her room, she was shocked. She immediately informed her father that Ellis was not in her room. Meanwhile, Ellis and her soldiers were going to the lower realm. She wished her father would forgive her for abandoning her mission in the upper realm, but as for her, she simply could not wait any longer to see Crest. That is the end of the recap at chapter 22.3. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.